Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a big week in gaming. I'm integot for episode 14 for Sunday the 18th of October. In this week's show, we'll be discussing the announcement of the Analogue Duo, PlayStation 5's cool new user interface, and a deep, very deep, retrospective review of Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. And I'd like to welcome my co-host, Swinny, the Xbox Hall of Famer, #1 RPG gamer on Xbox in all of Oceania. How are you going?
I'm very good, thank you. It's like, I'm like, please qualify that Oceania. I'm definitely not #1 in the world. That would upset a lot of people out there.
I mean, it's all like public knowledge, right? So
well, I'm #2, but still
in the world.
One. Yeah, it's been #2. Yeah, but the thing is,
how
right,
far behind are you?
It's the gap's pretty big.
Okay, fair enough. I was thinking, could I get some Chinese people to cheat and pay them to play while you sleep?
It's like big enough to the point where I'm like that gap's been known for like 10 years and I've never been able to close it. And honestly, like I like the guy who's #1. I actually probably wouldn't want to close it. I think he deserves to be #1.
It's kind of funny to me, but it I don't know if you get to understand this, but it's a little bit like Bradman in cricket. For our US listeners, that Bradman is a batter and his average is just statistically off the charts ahead of who's second. So like most people in batting in cricket, test cricket, it's like an average of 38 is like probably average for a guy who's going to have a career. And then a very good batsman, it's like 50. And then Steve Smith, I think, is #2. He's like 63, which is just insane. And then you've got Bradman, he's like 99.94. It's just like way off the charts. It's just wild. So I sort of see it like that. Maybe this guy who's #1, he's a bit like Bradman, but you're the best of the next, right?
Yeah. I'm the best of the worst. Everyone's the worst.
Best of the worst. You're the best of the competitors. You're the next man up. And how are you feeling? So obviously last week we had Mike fill in. Thank you very, very much, Mike. It was quite a fun show. You feeling better?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. When you're stuck in a hospital bed for a couple of days with nothing but a phone and a Switch, you get some gameplay done because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, we played some Smash when you were in the emergency room.
Yeah, managed to play one game of Smash, and then unfortunately the me hotspotting my mobile to the Switch and with the poor reception in the emergency room. That's one for the highlight books, I think.
Well, it's also that Smash is not a resilient online game, so it's just the worst of both worlds.
But I think it was less about, hey, I really want to play Smash Brothers, and more, I just really want to do this just to say we've done it.
Yeah, same. That's why I joined. I was like, yeah, I'm going to play you in the emergency room. That's funny.
Would have actually probably tried to play Rocket League the next day when I was just in the normal ward, but just I had to download the game. I'm like, I'm not about to download 10 gigs or whatever it is on my mobile. But
like, I just imagine that the hospital, it's like they have some kind of emergency. A red alert goes off. Oh no, we've got no data. We've gone over our cap. Someone's downloaded 10 gigabytes, and now we can't do these surgeries. And you're just like, ooh, doo-doo. And you listened to the show last week, and I think you might have been cringing at some parts. But did you have any corrections for Mike and I last week?
Well, first of all, again, just want to thank Mike for stepping in and being awesome. It was fairly last minute. So obviously he's been keen to to join us for a bit, and I think maybe we'll get him back someday as well. But yeah, it's in terms of, there's a couple of things I just wanted to point out. So I, for one, am very excited about Mortal Kombat, Rambo being Mortal Kombat as well as Melina Rain, unlike Mike. But my correction is that Predator's already been a DLC character, so I think you guys are like, oh, it'd be cool to get Predator in. Has Predator been in? And yeah, Predator was in Mortal Kombat X, and he was alongside Alien, Leatherface, and Jason Voorhees in across their different DLC packs for that one.
So do people call it Mortal Kombat X and not 10?
I do. I've
Mm.
heard
I've
other
heard
people
other people say
that.
that as well. Yeah, I've heard people say that, and I thought it was weird, but yeah, given that you've said it as well, I don't want to have a correction for next week.
Yeah. And the other small one, and Mike said he wasn't sure about this, was the weapon degradation bug for Dark Souls, where the frame rate affected how quickly the weapons broke, was with Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, not Dark Souls Remastered. That was actually really interesting. So I know integot that you're not fully across how it would work, but it's just like any game, how your weapon breaks in Dark Souls, but generally it's not a big problem at all. Anyway, and it's just more to stop people just going around recklessly hitting everything with their good weapons and having a bit of a strategy. But it actually added another level of challenge, because I played through it like that, where you always had to have like backup weapons, and your weapon would break in the middle of boss fights, and you'd have to go into the equipment menu and that game doesn't pause while you're in the menu, so you're running around blind, having to like set up equipment. And people do that all the time in Dark Souls speedruns, but for a casual player, it was like, oh, quick, my weapon's broken, I have to go change it. So they patched it out pretty quickly, though.
I might have to save this clip for when we finally do our special. We might do it at the end of the year, a special one-off episode around Breath of the Wild, and stating our cases whether we like it and dislike it. But I might save this clip around you being comfortable with weapon degradation in gameplay.
You've said it before, and I said I don't have a problem with it in games that need it. That where it suits.
I'm doing the Trump line of just repeating it over and over again until it's true.
Sleepy Swinny,
sick Swinny. And I'm actually, because you are like, I always refer to you for corrections and just like to keep us on the straight and narrow. I'm actually impressed that it's only 2 things, because you did listen to the whole episode. So I would have expected a lot more, to be honest.
There might have been a couple of things, but also, there's just things I remember. I'm glad that Mike eventually did say that the Xbox does have the confirm and cancel buttons around the that way as well. I'm like,
oh, I knew that.
Okay, but yeah. You guys are like talking for ages. I'm like, it's like that on Xbox as well.
Yeah, no, I knew that. And I'm still annoyed that we didn't keep the Nintendo and then Super Nintendo style of, because I'm still more used to that, because I haven't, like, I played Xbox 360 a lot, but I probably still play on Nintendo consoles the most. So for me, it's very natural, and I still struggle with it, like in Rocket League, because it's the bottom button to confirm, and when I'm really trying to quickly change something, it always stuffs me up, like in the middle of a match or something like that. And this week we played a bit of Steve in Smash. What were your thoughts of the character?
Steve, as he announces it. It's great. I prefer to say that I played as Enderman, thank you very much. Enderman's the way cooler skin.
It is cool, yeah.
Look, it is awesome what they've done with this character in Smash. No one... you know how you've got a kid in school that when you've got like a school project, they just go... like you used to have to do dioramas or something. Like, here's a volcano, and they would just go insane. They'd have like mechanic setups, and they'd do all this crazy stuff. That's like Sakurai with this character. He's just he's gone crazy on this character. He's just gone to the added so much to it. But in terms of playing the actual character, I've only played a few matches. I don't know if it's my style, but it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, like, what actually was very heartwarming to me? I was watching a video with Mewtwo King and Salem, and they were like, playing Steve and just talking a bit about the character. And, these two are like some of the best ultimate Smash players in general. Mewtwo King's one of the 5 gods, right, of Melee. And, they were both pretty much saying at the end, man, this character's just like a lot to do, like a lot to think about. I couldn't remember everything. And it was just like, oh, I feel like almost comforted, the fact that these guys who are just unreal at the game are also kind of struggling. Because that was the thing for me. It was like, man, just like keeping on top of everything, resource management, strategies, how you're going to get certain materials, because there's only certain parts of the actual of the level that you can actually get those materials, and just getting your head around all the moves there. Like, I was thinking about it before. It's almost like a game in itself, just playing this one character. Like, you could spend 20, 30 hours just to get, the basics of the character down pat. Like, it is a crazy, crazy character. It's so impressive. And, everyone's just going to tip their hat to Sakurai and the team over there. Like, it's legit insane what they're doing with the game at the moment.
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit online, and Steve's tough to deal with. Especially, he's got an up smash that just pulls you in, and so that means that you've got to be super careful when you're approaching from the air. The spike on the forward air. Oh man, like he's tough to deal with, but it's like any new character. You just, once you kind of know what they're capable of, you can look for those reads and everything. So it's really cool. I'll definitely give him another shot. I already just play so many characters, and I'm just kind of I'm almost like honing in on a couple of them now. So
yeah, I'm Inkling for life, so I'll never get like, literally. What's kind of funny about it is Inkling was the first new character revealed, really, for Ultimate. And the fact that that's pretty much the only character that I play. so weird that they've added all these characters after that, the Ridleys, the King K. Rool's, Joker, and I'm still stuck on Inkling. Like, yeah, it's such a cool game, man. Like, as much as I think there's other games, and I don't think I would ever consider this game to be like the number one game of all time or my favorite game of all time. But if that question where the people go, if you could take only one game and you were on a deserted island, which game would it be? I think it would be this game. I think it would be Smash Ultimate, because especially if you have some mates there as well, I feel like you almost never run out of things to learn, do new characters, etc. There's so much depth to the game.
And if I was stuck on a desert island, I'd actually take Minecraft as the game I'd take.
Oh, really?
Because you could just basically, you could build a new world in Minecraft. There's so much, like, you could just spend your time in there.
Minecraft would be up there. Minecraft, yeah. It'd be between Minecraft and Smash for me. I think I'd still edge on Smash.
But I also actually played through Final Fantasy VII again, which was good fun.
Yeah, I saw you doing that on PC, right?
Yeah, so they added the achievement list there, so I replayed through that. So this is I replayed it a couple of years ago when they added it to Xbox, and that was the first time I'd played through since probably the early 2000s, and I definitely still feel that that game is not as good as I remember, and it's actually got nothing to do with graphics, it's got nothing to do with gameplay, systems, or characters. A lot of people are like, oh, it's so outdated looking. That's got nothing to do with that. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think either of us care about that.
No, it's actually just I guess a lot of dungeon is the wrong term, because that's more like a Zelda thing, but it's like the areas that you go into just feel very disjointed, like when you get to like Temple of Ages. I won't go into it because I know there's people that may not play through it all, but
including me.
Yes, so
yeah,
I didn't want to out you on that one, but
look. The reality is that there's hundreds of games that you almost have to play before you die, and you almost don't have enough time to do all that. And a stinger for a little bit later. There's a reason why now I'm gonna hold off on playing Final Fantasy VII. There's a reason, and I'll get to it later in the show.
So the and yeah, I just want to say, like, that game starts strong, but I think it loses it in the middle a bit. Whereas my recent playthrough of Final Fantasy VIII made me realize that game is actually way better than I thought. The problem with Final Fantasy VIII, it is just broken. It is so broken. It is the most broken Final Fantasy yet, easily. No
I thought you were going to say that you like Final Fantasy VIII more than 7, because you do have a lot of controversial opinions.
No, I don't like it more. It's
okay.
The gap has been lessened.
And on the original PlayStation trilogy, so 7, 8, 9, 9 is your clear favorite still, right?
Oh, it was back then, and it is just, there's no question now. Like,
it's separated. There's a gap now. Interesting.
Oh,
Interesting.
it is amazing.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, for me, I went and picked up Mario Kart Live, so that's the AR. I guess you could say AR, right? Like, it feels more than
Yeah.
AR, but because you've got the physical stuff and you got the game stuff. Mario Kart game, and so this is for Christmas. This is kind of like my present, family present, kind of a little bit for my son. He's 3. He'll be about 3.5. He's starting to get into it. He's actually playing Mario Kart on my Switch with gyro controls and all the sort of stuff that they have on there. And he was actually kind of getting it and moving it around. I was like super impressed. So I was gonna get him an RC kart, so I thought, well, why don't I get this, dude? I was just like so tempted to open it up and try it out and then put it back away. It was like so hard to like go, no, I should put it away.
I've watched a couple of clips of cats,
Yeah,
like chasing the cart around, which is always fun.
and I think that's the thing, because it had such good reviews. I'm like, oh man, I just want to have a little go so I can chat about it.
Oh,
here
so
well.
It actually has reviewed well, has it?
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where if you got to understand what it is, it's not Mario Kart 9. Like, even some of the reviews, people were saying it's more of a toy than a game. And I'm like, yeah, of course, it's a toy.
Yeah.
Like, who thought it wasn't a toy?
That's what I was about to say. So if anyone's expecting this to be the next Mario Kart, no.
Yeah, I know. It's like, to me, it's like my base level expectations is it's a good RC car with extra fun to it. And it's actually, from all reports, way more than that. People are shocked at how well it works, shocked at how good it feels. So much so that my wife was like, oh, we should get another. We should get Luigi, so then we can race. I was like, oh my God. So that might happen as well. But yeah, I think we have to wait until Christmas that I can maybe bring it up in the new year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And because I always chat to my friends at EB Games and the store manager, I've got some intel. So we can chat a little bit later about that as well.
Ooh.
And was there anything else that happened this week?
No, that's pretty much it. There's something that I'll mention a bit later that that happened this week. Which, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, let's get into our first headliner, and this is a company I promised I wouldn't bring up for a while, apart from the fact that Analogue Day happened, which is Analogue, one of my favorite companies. The 16th of October it's officially Analogue Day in Big Week in Gaming calendar. You've had in last year Analogue Pocket announced on that day, Mega SG the year before, and then the Super NT the year prior. So, Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. And this year, everyone was kind of having rumors, are they going to announce something? They did make an announcement. And I always love with these announcements, people project what they want into it. So the announcement was really simple. It just said announcement, and then it had a power sign like squared. And then it had the date, which is now, in my world, referred to as Analogue Day, 16th of October. And from that, people started going, oh, it's a GameCube because it's a cube, right? And then people were like, no, you idiot, that's a square, right? A cube would be a 3. And, people just like going, oh, they're going to do an Analog Pocket restock. And I look at it, and I think someone, found what it was, which was it's a all-in-one system that it clones almost every single NEC console. So that brings us all the way back to episode 1, where we actually reviewed Bonk's Adventure. So this is the TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, Super Graphics, TurboGrafx CD, and then the CD-ROM 2, and in the Duo as well, we should call out as well. And it's being called the Analogue Duo. So it's kind of an interesting one because, as far as I understand, none of these consoles came out in Australia. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I believe so. I just want to say, let's officially, for this week at least, rename the podcast to Big Week in Analog.
Big Week in Analog. I have spoken a lot about analog. I feel like maybe a third of the episodes have got analog content in it. But look, and you know what? One thing about this announcement is, I'll get through the features first. So this is the first analog system that actually has a CD drive, and I do want to touch on that later and my thoughts around that. It is compatible with Hue cards, turbo chips, CD-ROMs, so all your original collection of TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, and associated NEC console games, you can just plug straight in. Just like Analog normally does, you can use wireless controllers on it, your original controllers, and it outputs in HDMI, so 1080p. you'll need to get like an analog DAC if you want to then pump that through into a CRT. But this is actually amazing because PC Engine, I'm not sure how close you are to it, but it's probably one of the trickiest consoles to get outputting to like a HD source or to even a CRT. Like they have really bad capacitors, so people have to recap them. The modification costs a fortune. It's really hard because it's not a really big scene. And just for comparison, so this will retail at $199 and it's going to be released next year. Now with shipping, that's about $90 Australian. Like you're looking at like about $400 for this, like shipped to your house. Whereas just looking at the secondhand market for something that's not even the equivalent, it doesn't even have everything that this does. It's about $650 Australian, just because it's actually really hard to do. And also the quality, you know, just given that you're talking about systems that are 30 years old now versus something that's brand new, like I think it's an amazing deal. Now, the community in general was so like people were really getting aggressively upset about this because they had the line limited quantities, and everyone's just like, oh my god, this is just Analog Pocket all over again. What's wrong with this company? I don't know, man. Like I can't actually see this selling out like crazy. Like for instance, the Mega SG, they still have copies for sale, and I think the difference between this versus other things, it's kind of like it's a bit of a captive audience. Like I don't see younger kids in general getting into TurboGrafx 16. You know, it's really the people who played it back then, have collections, or are into it now. I don't see you growing that audience very much. So they actually do need to be a bit careful about how much they produce. And I don't see this selling out on day one. Maybe it will, but I actually think if you want to get this in, I don't think you need to be as desperate to order this. But looking at history, it's probably a good idea when they announce the pre-order date, you get in and get on it quick, just given what happened with the Pocket. So yeah, like what did you think about this, Swinny?
Yeah,
Apart from that, I was going to go on and on about it.
No, it's a tricky thing to give my input because, as you said, you know, these consoles never came out here. And even if they did, I probably wouldn't have owned one because, you know, especially back then, like owning multiple consoles wasn't really a thing for most people. You just had one console and maybe a computer. And the thing for me is that means that, you know, I'm not interested in this in any way because I don't own any of the games. Now I know that there's ways, you know, that I'm sure to like load ROMs and stuff eventually, but I'd be more interested in, you know, the TurboGrafx Mini that they announced, you know, a little while back, Konami or whoever, simply because, well, that's got the games on there. But I just got to give another shout out to whoever it is that designs the look of these analog products.
Yeah.
They're so on point. They just all look so cool. And that picture that they've got with the CD going in as well as the Bomberman card, man,
the Hue card.
I know I can really see why people like almost collect these. You know, even if they don't plan to use them that often, they're like, I want this machine because it just looks so cool. And those cards, I never realized how cool they look. I love look at those cards.
Yeah, like, and so I'm not a collector at all. You know, 95%, probably even higher than that, to be honest. I'm not going to get this. Same as you. And I think it's also because of Australia. Like, we didn't have TurboGrafx 16 come into our country. So, for instance, I was never a big Mega Drive / Genesis player. But we were familiar with it. It was really big in Australia. Some would say it was bigger than Super Nintendo. And I
don't start that again.
Well, I don't know. And I reached out to a bunch of people to try to find out. And no one could give me any data. We'll get it eventually. But just looking at this, I think because I'm not even familiar with it. You know, when we played Bonk's Adventure, it's like I had no nostalgia for it at all, like zero. And it does impact you. Like, I feel like at least if I was more familiar when I was younger, I'd be like, oh yeah, I always wanted that thing. It looks really crazy. And I'm a bit like that with the Mega SG. Like, that's still available. And I tell you, if analog shipping wasn't as crazy as it is, like, it is so expensive to ship to Australia from analog. It's like $130, $140. It's insane. if it was more a reasonable price, like 40-50 bucks, I probably would get a Mega SG, which is the Mega Drive / Genesis clone, which you can get adapters and play Master System as well. Now, I've played that. I, famously or infamously got a Game Gear, so I am actually familiar with some of these Sega titles, but yeah, this one I just don't have any affiliation with. But, to your point, the internal engineering, like the hardware stuff, which a guy called Kevtris does, and the
Kevtris is it? Okay.
Yeah, well, no. So he does the FPGA stuff. So that's the internal.
Yeah.
And then the industrial design, they get different designers to do it. But, the guy Christopher Tabor, who's like the head of Analogue, he does like, he gets so much hate. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's like, you don't have to buy these things. You know what I mean? Like, but to me, what he's doing is he's actually elevating retro gaming. He's like, to me, this looks better in my world, and maybe I'm crazy. This looks better than like the shit that Apple's putting out these days from an industrial design point of view. Like, if you actually look at what they're putting out there, like the Pocket, to me, it looks unreal. It looks so good. And you're right. Like, they just do such a good job on all fronts, apart from their customer service, which is infamously bad. But yeah, like, it looks exciting. But and I just want to reiterate. So yeah, it is out next year, $200 US. It will be around, I think, 410 Australian dollars if you want to order this to Australia. My thoughts on this one. So, they've had a lot of issues with this whole Analog Pocket. Kevtris, the guy who does the FPGA emulation, he's kind of already had this TurboGrafx 16 stuff in the works for a long time. So I actually think it was relative for them, a lot less effort to do this. I think that this is actually a really interesting strategy, what they're doing, because my thought, at least, is this is the first time they've really gone mass market on CDs. And CDs, you know how it is, man. It's like, that's a mechanical part. It's not like what Analog have done previously, which is all like solid state stuff. This is actually moving parts, things like that. I think that they're doing this and doing it on a console that is underappreciated, that's not likely to sell a lot of units. I think they're doing this now because then it gives them time to really like put something out there, make sure it works well, and then they could actually do a PS1 clone, maybe next year, maybe the year after, and have worked out all the bugs around the CD drives and how do you, manufacture that. Because I think if they did a PS1, they would sell like bloody hotcakes. Like, that would just be up there with the Analog Pocket. And, viability of PS1, like, there are actual efforts in the community for Mister, which is like it's like an FPGA, but it's an all sort of access open source one. So it's like what Analog's doing, but in open source fashion. There's a whole bunch of effort to do this for PS1, and I think everyone in the community believes it's doable. And then maybe some people would ask, why is Analog not doing the Nintendo 64? I don't think the Nintendo 64 is going to be done like ever, or like in a very, very, very long time, because the actual chips on the Nintendo 64 are really, really, like for their time, super advanced and super complex with the way that they work.
Ultra 64.
Yeah. Yeah, because you got the whole SGI stuff. And I just, like, you even see it with emulators. Emulators for 64 are still trash. Like, PS1, there's really good emulators out there. Like, you probably wouldn't even know if you're playing PS1 or, like, the emulator. Whereas 64, you can tell straight away. Like, I've never seen a 64 game emulated where I'm not like, oh, they're running this through an emulator and they're not actually playing it on the console. So I don't think they'll ever do the 64. I think, yeah, PS1 will be the next big one. And that would, I don't know what they'll do after that, to be perfectly frank. Because people were debating whether they'd ever get around to TurboGrafx 16. They have. So there's kind of running out of consoles that they could even do this type of treatment with the FPGA. So it's exciting. I really think this is super cool. If I had crazy amount of money, I would buy it, but I just don't have the nostalgia for it. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense for me to get one. I don't have any games for these systems.
Yeah. I also noticed, so are they also doing like a converter or a card reader for the Pocket as well?
Yeah, so they'd already announced that. So that means, the Hue cards with that Bomberman thing, you can actually play on that. So obviously it wouldn't be the CDs, but Yeah, the card readers are
So
really hard
just
to.
the visual of like trying to jam a CD into the pocket. It's just
Well, I mean, look at the PSP. Essentially, that's like a little CD. Those UMDs, right?
that's true. That's true.
Which is still funny to think that they did that. Like, but that shows how advanced Sony is from a hardware engineering point of view. Like, they are so far ahead of everyone else in that realm. Yeah, I like those adapters, but they didn't have all of them available at once. And because the shipping is so crazy to Australia, I'm just hoping for the off chance that they'll be more widely available, and then I can order them maybe in the future as a pack or something. I don't know, like, because they haven't finished them all yet. And Analogue's had a bad history with those type of adapters. So just with the Mega SG, which is like the Mega Drive clone, Genesis clone for the States, the first ones they shipped out would actually brick the console.
Shit.
And they had to like immediately tell everyone, don't use them. Like, just throw them in the trash. We'll send you new ones for free. Right, so a little bit of an issue there, boys. And so just a bit of the background to that, they were actually using like a third party to make them, and then they were unhappy with the quality in the end, so they went in-house to make all of those things.
This is coming from a completely ignorant perspective. So these analog machines, is there any way to actually give them firmware updates or anything, or they're completely okay?
Yeah.
There is.
So all of them have, that I'm aware of, have like an SD card slot. So like either SD or I think micro SD for the pocket potentially. So you just plug it in there and you can update the firmware. I had to do that with my Super NT to get the analog DAC to work, which allows me to plug it into my Sony Trinitron. And then also people use that to jailbreak the consoles, and then you can play like ROMs off the SD. But that's something that Analogue themselves absolutely don't talk about, don't refer to, don't encourage at all. And yet it's kind of really strange. The hardware engineer, Kevtris, was the one who released the jailbreak. So it's
really strange. I don't know.
You know what? I have to say though, Analogue, you know how I love business and legal stuff. It's because it's my job as well, in my day job. But I read through their disclosures and things like that. I'm like, they got to be really careful. They got to be like maybe a bit more clearer, because I feel like they could actually have a cease and desist on their hands. They got to be more like clear around they have no association with like Nintendo, NEC, like any of these things. Like, I read through it all. I'm like, this doesn't really clearly say to anyone this has nothing to do with those companies helping them or being associated with them, because they're using their brands and their trademarks all the way through it. Like, they're talking about TurboGrafx 16, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they obviously haven't been contacted by anyone, because just going through, I'm like, like, it's a bit strange the way that they're marketing it. Like, and it looks really, really cool and minimal and everything. It's awesome. Looking forward to it. I really feel like, PlayStation 1 is likely next year. And that would be sick. Like, I'd be all over it. And that's why I was just saying before, Final Fantasy 7, I actually think I'll wait until they have one of these FPGA clones of the PlayStation 1, and then I want to play it like that. Because I've been looking like heaps at getting a PlayStation 1, and it's just like, they're so unreliable. The CD drives are failing. There's just a lot of issues, and I'm just like, oh, do I want to get original one, mod it, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, I feel like they're likely to do this because it's achievable, and it would sell, and it'd be a really cool piece of history to have a PlayStation like that in this format. So, was there anything else you wanted to flag?
Nah, I'm all good. It's one of those topics where I wish I could, talk to it more, but I've always been keen to try more TurboGrafx games. I think it's gonna have to be the emulation world for me to experience some of that stuff, and maybe we'll hit some more games for the podcast like we did for Bonk.
Well, I wanted to convince myself to buy one of these, so I went on YouTube and looked at the top 50 like TurboGrafx 16 CD Duo games of all time, and I'm like, sweet, I want to get some hidden gems I've never heard of and go, maybe I should get my hands on these, right? And then the number one on this it's just one person's list. The number one was like Street Fighter 2 Champions Edition, the 8-bit version, and I was just like, oh, okay, all right, this is not gonna. And then I think Bonks was 3,
Well,
and I'm just like,
Bonks is a good game. Yeah.
yeah, but dude, like if that's the third best game on your console,
But this is no, but this is the person someone's list.
sure,
You know?
sure, sure,
Yeah.
but still, yeah, I don't know. I was just like, oh, yeah, maybe I need to look up. I think it's a good thing that you're saying. Like we should play one or two, maybe the ones that are underrated or something like that, or underappreciated, and then yeah, see how it goes. So going from my speculation about PS1, why don't we get into some other headline news around a more recent version, more recent iteration of PlayStation. So this week, Sony dropped the PlayStation 5 UI in a very out of the blue state of play. I think I was playing Rocket League or something, and I have a Twitter feed up, and it popped up, and it was like, "Hey, check out our UI." I was like, "Oh, cool." So yeah, like you have to help me out a lot here, but I looked through this and I was like, wow, because I've got a PS4. I don't have an Xbox One. To me, this just absolutely destroys the PS4 interface. I've always felt it to be really clunky. This is like very centered, and they've really, to me, built it around, actually playing the games and using the console. So, it's very big on the rest mode. As soon as you boot up, bang, you're in the game. You can just get into it really, really quickly. It's there to play. And this new feature that I thought was really, really cool, actually, and it's perfect for someone like me. This whole thing around activities. So they actually show, and it's got something to do with the trophy stuff, but you've got your activities, but it actually tells you, like, linked into the actual game itself, hey, this is an activity that you could do. It's going to take you 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and then you can actually get into that part and, complete those challenges. And I'm sure, like, part of it, I'm not sure, I can't recall if it's, like, always associated with the trophies for that game. And then, there's a whole host of other features we want to jump into, but just on the activities thing, for me, that's so good because, I have the issue of maybe sometimes I can only get in half an hour of gaming. So the quicker it gets in, that's huge for me. And that's why I love the Switch, because I can just bang, get right into it. And the quicker I can just pause it or get into another game, that's awesome. So yeah, like what did you think about it? Because you're obviously familiar with the Xbox interface. Did you look at it and go, oh wow, I wish we had some of that stuff? Or
So, like, yeah, so I upfront, just like you're not as familiar with definitely the Xbox One interface, I'm definitely not familiar with any of the recent PlayStation interfaces in any way. So keep that in mind whenever I'm giving my thoughts about this whole thing. The activities thing's cool. I really like the fact that it seems like some things will be able to take you straight to that part of the game. The I do have my doubts, very big doubts about how that will be applied, because you've got something like Sackboy, the adventure game, and I'm sure Astrobot and a lot of the first party or the Sony titles, they will implement it really well. But what does that mean for every other game? How well
yes.
are developers going to stay on top of that? Is it going to be a feature that kind of is optional for developers to do? If so, does that mean it's just going to be a trophy tracker, which is cool? But the whole, I click to go to that part of the game, well, that's definitely not going to work in a lot of games. Imagine God of War, you're not going to just, maybe if God of War has like a fast travel system, it could fast travel you to the part of the game the part of the map, sorry, that has that challenge or whatever. I do like the amount of time it takes, but a lot of that is very subjective and down to player skills. So that is always like a very loose estimate, I think. So I'm hesitantly positive about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't know if it was the best idea maybe to open with that, because it felt like
The
you went straight
activities?
in. Yeah, you went straight in. You're like, what are all these cards? What's going on? Like, to me, like, I think they probably should have built up to it a little bit. But I like the idea.
Okay. Like I think you're 100% right. Like it's how well they execute it is going to be a big thing. This is kind of something to me that they will either do it the right way or the wrong way. And in my opinion, the right way is to heavily rely on data. So have a baseline. Any developer, if they're doing the activity thing, it's kind of like, this is when you start it, this is when you finish it. You need to input some base level in there, right? Which is like the default that would give you a guide that you're playing, right? And then you heavily rely on data. Like, so I think you're on the quicker side in terms of gaming. If I was to put this in parlance of reading, you're like a fast reader. Like you get through a game faster than the average person, right? I'm definitely a slow reader, like actually a slow reader, but I'm also slow at games. Like I'll play and it'll be like double the amount of time that you probably take to get through a game. Um,
It depends.
so
Honestly, it depends on the game.
Oh yeah, sure, but I'm just saying in general. I think like if just you had to say randomly pick a game, I'd say that's true. Now, like they need to just use data to be able to support this stuff. So it's like if someone's slow, they can see that through the data. They just like with true achievements, which is a site you're pretty big on, like that's using data to judge, hey, how hard is it to get this achievement, how easy is it, and develop a rating, right? Like they could do the same thing with this, and I hope that's how they're doing it. I think it would be a real big error if they did it so that it's like they're really relying on what the developers think it would take to get through something, and they're not using sort of like that big data approaches to go, well, wait a second, we have millions of people playing the console, why don't we use that information to be able to do it? So no, like I am super interested in this. I think the fact that it's so snappy and quick is actually like making me really excited about this next gen versus the current gen, which I've always been a bit just felt it was really, really slow. It's slow to get into games, slow to load things, and like I've always said, for me with time, it's really critical these days. And something I've liked, I know, I sound like a Switch stan or something, but I've always liked about the Switch. And when everyone's complained about, oh, the UI hasn't changed, I could just turn it on and just get straight into a game, and it gets out of my way, and I can play, which is cool. But yeah, like, do you want to chat about the other features that it has?
Yeah, I quite like the game help feature.
That's interesting.
So if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber, and you need help on I guess it's related to those game cards or those activities that pop up in the control center, that you can view a game help feature that has integrated like video guides and things like that. It's interesting. It's limited to PlayStation Plus, and no, I don't know the percentage of people that are PlayStation Plus subscribers, but I wonder if the people that probably need those videos the most for help are maybe the people that are super casual gamers that may
Yeah,
not have
true.
PlayStation Plus. But um, that's a cool feature. I the whole snap to the side. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the Xbox Snap feature that kind of got phased out. I guess based on the data. Well, there was a few things there they were wanting to, I guess, reallocate the system resources, so the Snap feature went away to help with that. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, I actually used the snap feature, but I used it to snap the achievement tracker to the side of the screen, and now you can
That's
just
cool. Yeah.
now you just overlay it on top instead, so you don't need the snapper. But I like that idea. I don't. It We'll see whether or not it's something that people use. I have a feeling that if they see that not a lot of people are using it, that may get phased out eventually. But hey, you never know. Maybe it becomes a super useful thing for everyone.
I think, those picture in picture type stuff and like snapping. So, like, snapping it so that the game's on the right or the left or whatever. I feel like they live and die by how easy it is to get into that mode, rearrange things. You know what I mean? Doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
I find that when it's not intuitive, people just don't know about it, don't use it. And then, yeah, they'll come through the data for sure. So I was the same as you. I thought it was really, really cool, that feature.
Yeah, probably my favorite thing of this whole showcase was being able to view friends' gameplay feed
Yeah,
and
that's so sick.
put that picture in picture, and that's
Yeah,
something
that's so
that
sick.
I swear they talked about that last gen, where they would start introducing that stuff. I swear, because it was definitely before this next gen features and things started to get discussed, in the last 12 to 18 months. And that stuff just never eventuated last gen. Like they talked about being able to pick up gameplay, using, cloud streaming and stuff from, you pick up a game from where your friend was playing it and stuff like, and that none of that stuff ever happened. So this is really cool because I love the idea of, hey, you're on voice chat with someone, you're both playing through a game, and you can kind of have their screen there if you want to see it, or their screen playing something completely separate. I'm just the other day, no joke. So I was doing some grinding in Final Fantasy VII. I was spectating in Smash Brothers. I was watching Reddit, and I was listening to reading Reddit on my phone, and I was listening to a podcast. I was doing 4 things at once. And I think we're all at that point these days where we're kind of like trying to, what's the term? What's the RPG term? Oh my god, min-max. You're trying to min-max your time.
How do you not remember min-max? And
I had a brain fart moment. Yeah, you try to
love the word min-max.
Min-max your time so that you get doing everything as efficiently as possible. And I like this idea.
I've tried to introduce min-max at the bank that I work at as a term because I think it's such a good term. It's because it's very it's very visual to me, the term. Yeah. Like when you understand what it means, it's such a great word. Look, like the whole streaming and everything, like I think I would have got in a lot of trouble if we tried to make predictions about next gen. So if we were doing this podcast a year ago, at some stage we would have been like, let's sit down and predict what is going to be in the consoles, because I really expected them to go harder on the streaming part of it. And I was kind of expecting them, like one of the brands at least, to do a deal with Amazon and Twitch to have that fully integrated. Like for instance, like you could have I know, like, and to be clear, people are going to correct me. I know that there's the PS camera and all these things, but I'm talking about something I can just go in the store, get the PS5 Twitch camera, put it on a tripod in front of me. It has automated, detection of my background. So it cuts me out, puts it in a logical way. So it's just kind of like the easiest way to jump into streaming at a good quality. You know what I mean? And have like the Twitch chat on the left, you're playing a game on the right. They are seeing, the right version of that. It has inbuilt transitions. I would have went really hard on that prediction.
Xbox went hard on that last gen. Or current.
Yeah, but it was too early. It's too early.
Yeah, I know, but you said thing. But they've done that. That's the thing, is they've backpedaled all that. Obviously, they've shut down Mixer, which is a huge part of that. But they, like, all the integration, everything. Now, I won't say in what you're saying in terms of, you buy like a prepackaged camera thing and all. Like the camera part's probably the only thing and things like that. But it's they did go hard on it, and I think they realized that the people that are going to do that, they're probably more interested in doing it the proper way, or like doing it like because as I said, like they've tried all that, and it just obviously the numbers didn't show that it was working for them. A big part of that is also the fact that obviously it wasn't Twitch, but they have had a huge part of it. But they've also, they've made steps towards that. But yeah, I honestly don't. I think they've tried that, and I don't think it's the way that they wanted to go.
Yeah. So, timing is massive. There were social media networks before Facebook that did everything Facebook did, but you almost need to be at the right place at the right time with these things. And I think last gen, like this gen, current gen, it's too early. And I think the next gen, where you're building it in mind and you can actually have more hardware integration into that stuff, I don't know. Personally, I was just surprised. And I would love to know if they thought about it. And I do feel like some of it is to do with, there's only really 2 companies that could do this, Sony and Microsoft. Microsoft, when they were developing this console, because remember, they were developing it like 3-4 years ago. They were deep into their own streaming platform as an idea, right? So they wouldn't have even been entertaining Twitch. And then Sony, again, is a Japanese company. Yes, they deal with American companies, but it's totally different. And, if Twitch was like a Japanese company, maybe it would happen, right? I don't know. I was just a bit surprised. Because Sony does love to create accessories. You can see that with the lineup. They have so many accessories, and they're all like, with the same branding and everything like that. And I don't know, I just would have thought if they had that deep integration, and I would still believe. I understand that there's been an example already that failed. I just think, you get on the right platform, which is Twitch, and if it's really easy and, it's a safe thing as well. Like, I feel like that's an element as well. That would have been really interesting, but it's not going to happen. That was probably the only thing that surprised me. And just one thing I wanted to call out is all the changes they've made this week to the PS4, and then this is all because of the PS5. So there's some changes to the way they're going to do voice chat moderation, which I thought is really interesting. The way they handled it was really poor, so much so that Sony themselves pretty much apologized for how they explained it to people. So essentially, they're going to progressively record 5 minutes of your chat at all times, and then obviously like only keep the last 5 minutes. And if you do have an example of abuse or something like that in the voice chat, you can submit 40 seconds of audio for review to the moderation team. I personally think this is a great idea. I'm not sure if you think it's a bad idea or invasion of privacy or something like that.
I think it's a good idea, but they have to be very careful, and I think that it needs to be made incredibly clear every single time you join a voice chat that has been recorded that is happening. It's similar to, when you call a company and they say this is being recorded, there's legal reasons why that has to happen, but it makes you, it does give you a heads up, because the reason why I think that is, then that's going to make people not do it. It's almost like, as in like it's
not abuse, you mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word, but it's like preventative measure where it's like, crap, at any time, that's right, I joined, that's right, they've got this new thing. I'm not going to start calling everyone racist, terms and stuff, which is like, that stuff happens. We know, like, it's horrible. So that's why this is a good thing, because then you can, you're able to cash that stuff out, because a lot of that abuse will happen over voice chat, not, people can report when people direct message them and stuff, but that's not where the most of it happens. It's on the voice chat in open lobbies and Call of Duty. And that's the question is it...
That's what I was going to say, Call of Duty.
Is it, because I don't know how the chat works on PlayStation, but you've got, like, obviously the party chat and the individual chats, and then you've got the game chats when you join the games. So is it everything?
I think it's any voice chat.
Okay. All right.
Because I think, to be honest, there'd be a huge amount of abuse in parties as well, even with friends and stuff like that. So, yeah, look, I think it's good. I think, it's funny because I'm a big privacy nut, but I look at that as, if I'm using WhatsApp, my phone, like, to me, they're absolutely utilities. Whereas I don't think going on voice chat on a video game is a utility. I just think that that's a community. And it should be moderated. And I shouldn't go on as a female or as a African American or a person of color and hear racist commentary or sexist like, that's BS. I hate that shit. That's actually, seriously, I'm very anti voice chat and anti all that stuff. I turn it all off because I can't stomach it. It's like hearing the internet. That's what it feels like to me. And there's just so many idiots on the internet, so I think it's a good thing, and I think they should go hard. And people do that kind of stuff. I think they should, just have their feature turned off completely. Like, they can't voice chat with their friends or anyone if they do that shit.
So a couple of other things I just want to ask about this whole new interface. And again, this is where the ignorance of my not knowing how the past things worked. I'd always heard that Xbox was well ahead in some regards in terms of, like, party chat and things like that. How they were showing stuff in this showcase that the 360 had. I'm like, wait, so people like that control center thing where you pop up, and I really want to say this is not being, they haven't had it, like, Android's had stuff that Apple's introduced. I'm actually curious. So how did that work with, like, party chats before?
It's just really, the whole thing's really clunky, man. Like, everything to me about the PS4 interface is super clunky. Like, the settings are all over the place. The PlayStation Store is so slow.
Yeah, they said it's
so slow.
They said it was a separate app before.
Yeah, dude,
Wow.
it's so slow. It's like you're launching into it loads, right? Like again, just from a business sense, it's crazy because the amount of friction it introduces, and that like they're gonna make more money because this is faster. And like Amazon's done great studies on 0.1 of a second contributes to X amount of sales lost. And it's magnitudes more than that, how slow PS Store is. It's just a really clunky interface. Like when you click into your version of like a command center, it's sort of like shows the games, and it's very just hard to get to what you want to do, and it's not intuitive. And you get it like when you play it all the time where to go, but like for instance when my wife grabbed and she had to check where she was from a trophy perspective, she didn't know how the hell to navigate it. It was like, where do I go? Where, like, do I go right? Like, where am I? And then, looking at this one, it's completely changed in my view. And very much, like you're saying, kind of like into what 360 had and what, Xbox has already had. And I actually had a question for you. I'm not sure if this is right or not. With the Xbox, are they actually unifying the user interface? So Xbox Series X and Xbox One X will have the same interface? Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm currently using the interface that the One X uses. Like I'm using it now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
It is cool, but there's an element of me that is like, if you were getting a new console, you want that new feeling as well.
I love that. I love that kind of like, oh man, like look how loads. I remember the PS3. I was like, damn, look how cool this looks.
Yeah, it's like the new, like the new car feeling or whatever. It's like, oh, this is new. So you lose that. You definitely lose that. The fact that if I went and got a Series X, God, I have to think every time I say that.
It's so bad.
If I went and got a Series X, it'd just be like booting up my One X. So
if I got a Series X,
yeah, I know.
As if there's any doubt. I still believe, and we'll get to it soon because I've got some confirmation you're not going to like to hear. But if you can get a hand on the Series X this year, I think you will.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're changing.
No. See, the thing is, I've said before, all it takes is one game, and that game isn't there. Like if they
Valhalla.
No, but Valhalla's on.
But you're not, dude.
No,
you want to play it on the best.
You don't understand me then, because I will always multi-platform, and I always start with the worst version.
Okay.
Because if you start with the good version, going down to the worst version feels
tough,
crappy. Yeah.
I always
start
as well.
with the worst version.
To be honest, I do that as well. So like, I have Monster Hunter World, but I'm actually going to play Monster Hunter 4 on the 3DS because I figure if I play World, I'm going to be like, oh my god, I can't go back. Like from a systems, quality of life, everything. Yeah. So I do get that.
But if they turned around and said there's a Dark Souls 3 like special edition that like whatever that runs at 60 frames a second, like they did, that's why I bought an Xbox One, because they did that Dark Souls 2. And so that's an example of where I'm like, yes, now I get one,
Hey, can I just ask this is embarrassing. Dark Souls 4.
Yeah.
Like, is that in development? Like, is that a thing? Am I like asking a really dumb question by saying that? Or
well, they're still working on Elden Ring.
So that whole team is on Elden Ring.
Well, I mean, there has been cases before where they've had like an A team and a B team, and they rotate development.
But the A team's on Elden Ring.
Well, I don't know. I'd assume so. But they worked on Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2 simultaneously, and I guess there was crossover Dark Souls 3 there as well.
Okay.
But look, no doubt they're putting in work, but I actually have a feeling if they're working on anything else right now, they're probably working on Bloodborne 2.
But I think that's almost one of those official, unofficial things.
Well, it's more like, okay, I think the Dark Souls series is kind of is in a good place right now, and they should build the other IPs. So I think that's why they would do that. Yeah.
And before we move on, just the last thing, because it was kind of strange, because this was showing off the user interface, but it gave us the best look at Sackboy, the new game that's coming out. And actually a lot of people are now hyped about Sackboy after watching the UI trailer and showcase.
I
But for me, I was like, whoa, this is 3D World, Mario 3D World.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Such a clone of it.
I'd assumed that game had been shown off quite a bit.
Nah, there hadn't been that much gameplay footage of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it felt like Genshin Impact or something. It's like, what the hell? Are they just trying to copy all the Nintendo games? It was pretty shameless, man. Like some of the parts that we saw. I was like, Jesus. Like they've just literally taken it and put a different skin on in some places.
Yeah, but I'm fine with that because that stuff used to happen all the time in games. You know, it's like suddenly it basically creates like almost like a new subgenre platformer, that kind of isometric 3D kind of platformer. So
8-directional, yeah. It's a weird feeling game. It's cool. I like it, but it's definitely different. All right, well, why don't we get into some of the smaller news items? Starting with one again. This year's been full of things that we've heard of many times, and they've eventuated. Even though I had some doubts on one or two that I won't mention again. Mass Effect. So the Korean review board has not accidentally, but essentially has outed the game. So Mass Effect Trilogy, the remastered trilogy, it's been long rumored. It seems like in the industry, people have been told about it, and it's just like, hey, it's a matter of time. And yeah, now that there's actually been a review from the Korean board, and can you think of one single example where like a serious review board has put a review of a game and then the game's never come out?
I can't think of any. That's why I put this story in, because there's so many other times when you could have been like, because there's been previous things mentioned in the last month and a bit about it. Yes. And I'm like, this is
listings
the one.
And stuff like
this
that,
is the one. This is when I'm putting it in, because it's also now got a name in that listing. And who knows, the name may change, or it may be region specific. But Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I reckon, it's an awesome name.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool name. Yeah, and you're right. There's been a lot of listings, but there's been examples of listings that have gone live and then they've never actually eventuated. So you can't trust those ones, because they also give hype to the retailers that have that stuff. So, but yeah, this seems now inevitable, and it's kind of a funny one because it from what I can understand, it seems like reporters have been informed about this by EA. Hey, I'll give you some background. Mass Effect Trilogy for Christmas. It's going to be huge. Next gen, all this other kind of stuff. But probably targeting the old gen, but playable on next gen. And then they haven't heard anything about it. And it's like all kind of leaking slowly. And now it seems like it's going to be a 2021 game. And now people are saying it's been delayed. And I'm like, how can you say it's been delayed but it's never been announced? Well, like, surely you can't say it's delayed.
But the reports were it was delayed because it was originally scheduled. That's why.
But you get where I'm coming from, right? I don't think you can ever say that's actually officially delayed.
No,
internally delayed.
Yeah, an internal delay. That's what I mean.
Yeah. But internal delays happen all the time. I don't think there's one single game that hasn't had an internal delay.
But it's just, I mean, any news people can get on this, you know.
It's true.
So
it's true.
I just want to say...
Yeah, go on.
That I was just going to say, yeah. So it includes all the DLC, which is huge, because while expected,
so we know that from the Korean review board.
So the
review.
Okay, let me just say, this information is all still like until they officially announce it. There is always that element of okay, you know, like we got to wait for final confirmation. But the general consensus from all the reports is that. Well, we knew it would be all three games, but that it does include the DLC. And some of those packs, like Lyra the Shadow Broker, are pretty substantial. So that's really good.
Yeah.
And the reports are also saying no multiplayer for Mass Effect 3, which is actually a big shame because out of all the games, single-player games that in their sequels added multiplayer, and that was kind of a thing in the 360 generation, like, oh, we're going to add multiplayer. Even like Metroid Prime 2 did it, you know, and it's like people felt it was tacked on, it was unnecessary. Mass Effect 3 is the one that did it well. People loved that multiplayer. I wasn't a huge fan, but I knew that I knew a guy that was like the top guy in Australia at it. Like he just played it all the time. It makes sense from like server perspective, but it was it also had like loot boxes and stuff in it, and I wonder if the reason is because the whole loot box thing, they'd have to rework all that stuff because everyone hates loot boxes now,
Yeah.
and the amount of rebalancing and everything that would take, it's just like, let's just not include it, plus the server issues and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and it might be a lot of work to actually rip that out of the game.
exactly. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably the main reason why. It's probably because the whole multiplayer was built around those loot box progression and stuff.
And what I know you've got some controversial opinions about this. So your prediction is this going to come out? Sorry, announced on November 7th.
Yeah, that's a pretty common prediction. So it's not like I'm unique in that. It makes sense. Not come out, sorry, to be unveiled, like announced.
Okay. Which is screwed for us because just selfishly, when we record, like it's probably going to be just after we finish recording, or like just before we record.
The thing that puts some doubt on that for me is the fact that that's just before the launch of the consoles, and
it's a Saturday.
Yeah, and they may think, yeah, but I mean, and 7 days, kind of like whatever day that falls on, I guess. But
I know, but it's like if you're in marketing department, doing it on a Saturday is like gonna piss off your partners in media.
So the thing to me is that, okay, it's literally just before the launches, so it could get buried, and plus, if it's not going to come out to next year, they may choose to have a shorter amount of time between announcement and release. So that's a prediction. I don't think it will be, but I'd say it's likely. I don't know. It's weird. It's kind of like, if it wasn't for those launch new consoles, I'd definitely put money on it.
Can I say my prediction?
Yes.
I think US time. So let's just base everything in US time because that's how it all works. On the Thursday night, they'll have an announcement. This is the 5th. On the Thursday night on the 5th, they'll have an announcement around, and they'll make it really obvious that it's, a Mass Effect related thing. Hey, we've got a big announcement on the 7th of November. And then they'll work with all the media partners to go, here's the trailer. This is what it looks like. Write your stories up, get them ready to roll. And then, they'll have like the, VOD go live on the 7th.
And then they announce Mass Effect Andromeda Remastered.
Yeah, it'd be funny if they included it into the Mass Effect.
Imagine the
remaster. No, you know what they do? They should make it so you have to beat Andromeda to then unlock the other 3 games.
Look, I love to joke about this, and I actually really like Andromeda. But it's so funny to joke about because, man, people hated that game. But I'm super pumped for this. I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. I've still got to finish.
So is Mike, right?
Definitely, Mike.
Yeah.
I've still got to finish the Japanese version of Mass Effect 2. That's kind of on my bucket list.
Of course you do.
Unfortunately, it's got unobtainable achievements, so you can't technically complete it, which is annoying. But it's I'm really looking forward to playing through them again. I'm not looking forward to another run of Mass Effect 2 Insanity. That's annoying, but it is. I guess when you get into it, it's fun. The thing for me with this, and one of the rumored reasons that it's been delayed, is because they're trying to, I guess, it's Mass Effect 1, apparently. Mass Effect 1 plays very differently than number 2 and number 3. So,
yeah.
Mass Effect 1 is an RPG that has shooting mechanics, whereas number 2 and 3 is a third-person shooter with RPG mechanics. It's the weighting is so different.
I didn't know that. Because I only played number 1.
So, I mean, you still run around, still third person, but it's from Mass Effect 2 and 3, they play really well. Mass Effect 1 does not play very well at all. But the weird part is that Mass Effect 1 is my favorite for a number of reasons. Like, I love the plot of the first one and characters and stuff. But I actually love the mechanics more because it suits me more. Like, it's more RPG. They took away a lot of the customization for number 2. They streamlined it. And they brought some of that back in number 3, which was great. And Andromeda had heaps of it. So that's why I actually really like Andromeda, because it's actually kind of closer to Mass Effect 1 in that regard. But Andromeda has the best combat by far. It's also the most modern game, so that makes sense. But my thought is that I hope they don't make Mass Effect 1 play like Mass Effect 2 and 3, because that's not why I want to play Mass Effect 1 if I'm going to play Mass Effect 1. And I know I can go play the old one. A lot of people want them to rework the gameplay to play like it. So that's
Also, they want it to play like Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 1.
Yes, because
Eee.
I'm not
I don't
going,
like that. I don't like that.
yeah, I'm not going to go and say that like Mass Effect 2 plays way better. Like there's a reason why that game is considered the best in the series by a lot of people.
One of the best games of all time.
Yeah, and it's a lot of that's because they took the formula from number one and they made it work really, really well. But just personally, I just really like number one. Now, what I don't like number one is, cookie cutter, you go to a planet and it's got the same building, the same layouts and stuff. Like, there's things I don't like about there's things I don't like about number one, don't get me wrong. I kind of almost wish that that's what they'd change, is just kind of fix up some of that stuff. But the actual gameplay, so I hope they don't, because I'd like, if I'm playing through Mass Effect 1, I want to play through it where it looks really good, runs really nice, but doesn't play like Mass Effect 2. But I understand why people would hope that they kind of rework it. It's just not what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because, the juxtaposition of movies and games. It's like movies, almost always for me, the original is better than the sequel. Whereas games, very often it's the opposite. It's the sequel is better than the original, and a bit of a hint for our special feature later when we're covering Diddy's Conquest. I'm in the same camp as you. I hate when they've taken a trilogy or multiple games, remastered them, and I understand economically why they do it. They put it all on the same engine, but often the original games had different mechanics or different game feel. And like, it goes all the way back to the old days when I said I don't like Super Mario All-Stars because they unified the mechanics of Mario. Whereas Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3, like, Mario felt different in those two games. He didn't move the same. And I never liked that they unified it. And I understand they did that with Crash in the remastered trilogy as well. So I'd be shocked if they don't do it in this as well. Like, they would unify it under one engine. And it's likely, and maybe as well when they're doing their playthroughs of Mass Effect 1 with the new engine and movement and everything, it's sort of a bit off or something.
So with Mass Effect, so when they released the PC port of it, they reworked a lot of the menus and the inventory, and they really improved that. So there's no doubt in my mind that that's the version we'll be getting at a minimum, which is great. They're the kind of stuff, if you're going to change a game, change the quality of life, change the menus, change things about being able to, when you go to sell something, you can sell the whole stack. That's a very RPG thing.
Please.
Please. That they're the kind of things that if you're going to improve about it, and that's the stuff, like, I really liked the Kingdom of Amalur, Kingdoms with an
Kingdoms. I have to go back and change every video.
I really liked that remaster, but when it came to the inventory, they didn't really touch that stuff very well. So that was a little disappointing for me. And they're the things that I want them to fix if they're going to fix anything. Not the actual core gameplay.
And from what we understand at the moment, it's PS4, Xbox One, and probably PC bound at this stage. There's rumors around a Switch release at some stage as well.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll just by default be backwards compatible with the new platforms, though.
Yeah, but no, that's what I'm saying. I think that's what they'll do. I don't think they're making a PS5, Xbox Series X version of it at this stage, at least. Maybe down the track, maybe a year later. The Switch one will be interesting because I think Switch, I feel like it'd be a new audience for them, and it could go gangbusters on the Switch. But yeah, you know what? Like, they probably could look into stuff like BioShock and how well that's selling, because that's a really good example. Similar.
If it's on Switch, and I hope you can choose which game to download, as opposed to having to download all three if you get it digitally.
Yeah, they're pretty janky with that stuff. Normally, they'll have the first game, so they'd have like Mass Effect 1 on the cart, and then you have to download 2 and 3, and it's just like one big download.
Because
And some of the games you have to do it. You can't even just play the first one by itself. It's really annoying.
Because those games are like 20 to 30 hours long, so the need to download all 3 at once would suck. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the way they'll do it, unfortunately. Which would be really annoying. I like the way that the Master Chief Collection does it. Like you can pick whatever game you want to install on the PC and delete it when you don't need to play it. It's a really, really good way to do it. And that gives us a good segue into Microsoft matters. So this week, Phil Spencer sat down with Kotaku for an interview. And I thought like there was a lot of interesting revelations in this article. So we don't normally just bring up a specific article, but yeah, there's just a couple of things that they said, or he said, that made me pause for thought, and then also just like what it means for the generation. And it kind of also reflects on some of the stuff you've said in the past. So some of the sort of like the big points. The first one that I was really surprised about, that he actually... Because and just one thing to be clear, like, because I've seen some people say some weird stuff around this. Phil Spencer cannot say things he doesn't have a reasonable ground to believe are true, right? Because he's an executive vice president of a publicly listed company. You can't just go out there and say stuff that could misinform the market. You can't like legally do that. So when people are saying, oh, he's only saying this for this and that, no. Like they need to be able to prove that there's a reason why he's saying these things and he believes them. So the first one is that Series S, he expects to outsell Series X. I was like, really? Because the initial pre-orders are way in favor of Series X, and Series S is still the only next-gen console you still can get. So you can still get one in Australia. I believe even on launch, you can still get a Series S. And in the States, you still can pre-order it as well. So... like, do you think that's going to be right? Like, what did make you think when you heard that, Swinny?
So he clarified that he thinks at launch the Series X will, like, for the first initial period.
Yeah, so I should say over time.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole reasonable grounds thing kind of puts a bit of doubt on what I'm about to say, but I wonder if this is a way to kind of prop the Series S up a bit, by him trying to kind of say this. And I know this is one random interview. This isn't a press release or anything like that, and he's probably
Correct.
like, he is probably not expecting this to go viral news, because other than us talking about it, I haven't seen it be a headline or anything, like huge headline. It's weird. I doubt it myself, but I also have a way less knowledge about everything than he does about this.
Well,
yeah, it's interesting.
And that's the part, because he just can't say stuff. Like you can bend the truth and all this other kind of stuff. You can say it in a way that is kind of like you go, well, that's a personal view or whatever, right? Like there's legal ways to get around that, but the way he sort of framed it was like kind of he referred to we, or like I think at one point he said model around some of the things that he was talking about. And to me, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. And just for context, I used to do like investment analysis. So like actually look at financial disclosures and what people say in companies, and they have to say certain things. So then you can work out backwards, like, what does that mean? How is that going to be achieved if you really believe that? So when he said this, because to me, gut feel, this seemed completely wrong. Like if the setting is $300 for a Series S, and then what is it, $400 for a PlayStation 5 digital, and then $500 for the Series X and the PS5. That's my recollection. I think that's right. Is that right, Swinny? I'll run with it.
Yeah, run with it, because I'm like, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure that's right. And I think it's like $250 for a Switch in the States. Now, when he said this, I still don't believe it makes sense, right? Like, I get there's a differential, but, gaming, people have been paying these $500 for these consoles, like, and that's fine. The only way it makes sense to me with what he's saying, and I'm actually going to bring back something you said when this all came out, like maybe 4 or 5 podcasts ago. If I had a model and modeled it in, to me, it wouldn't map out. It wouldn't make sense. But if my model said for Christmas 2021. And you got to remember, like, manufacturing will amp up and they'll have more consoles. Christmas 2021, we're going to do $100 price cut on the Series S. Then it starts to be like, oh, hang on. You know, if it's like 300 Australian dollars, 200 US dollars, that's just a proposition for people who have a Switch, who, you know, have a PS5, that just go, geez, like, that's just so tantalizing. And if they bundled that up with, hey, you get a year of Game Pass Ultimate or something like that, you know, it gets to a stage where you really do kind of go, it's almost an offer too good to refuse. You know, especially if it's your second console or something like that, or it's just a box to play, you know, xCloud and all these type of things. And it kind of marries up to what you said, because I think if they did do like $100 price cut that aggressively, that early in the generation, economically, how do you make that work? And it goes to what you said, they're not selling an Xbox. They're selling Game Pass now. And you can see that with the numbers and the strategy that they're doing, the acquisitions. And I'm like, you know what? If they did that, and I don't think they're taking that much of a bath, given the way that the Series S is built. And if they can ramp up the production of it, I'm starting to go, maybe that would actually work. And secondly, the Series S may outsell the Series X. I mean, if it's that much of a difference, you know, you look at it and you go, geez, like, you know, like, why would I not get it? You know, parents, they look at it, oh, if you get a second console for the kids because they're fighting, oh, just pick up a Series S. You know, like, what do you think of my crazy speculation?
Yeah, look, I think the retail bundles would, how they package all that stuff is going to be key with this, because as you said, like, your parents walk in, it's Christmas time, they go, oh, a kid wants an Xbox, or what, a kid wants a console. At that point, the kid's probably told them what they want. Let's not, you know, let's not kind of, you know, be ignorant of the fact that kids are always going to tell their parents which console they want.
Parents don't always listen though.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, you know, he wants an Xbox for Christmas. It makes sense that, you know, if there's a bundle that says, okay, that they get Game Pass for a year, maybe it's bundled in with you know, the latest, who knows, maybe the latest bloody Bethesda game or something. It's the bundles are key to this, I think. It's almost like the Series X in the future could be like, here is like the, I'm trying to think of the right terms, not hardcore or pro gamer, but he's like the person who wants the best, the top level, and he's
the enthusiast,
yeah. And he's I guess the regular Joe, regular Joe console. You know, I still would be surprised if it happens myself, but who knows? Like, this is the first time that both, you know, we've had Sony and Microsoft release two very different consoles, especially Microsoft. You know, the Sony difference is very minimal, but like, these are two wildly different consoles. You know, we've had different
strategies.
Yeah, and we've had different SKUs before when they launched with, here's this one launched with Xbox Arcade version with the main version, but they're essentially still the same console. This is like completely different, so it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing that's supporting my crazy theory, because if they were going to do this, they would be planning it now, right? Is that in the Australian market, for whatever reason, they added essentially another $50 onto the price of the Series S. Now, if you're setting a pricing strategy, and this is actually making me convinced that they're going to do this, man, in 18 months, they'll drop the price of the Series X by like $100. The more I think about it, I'm like more convincing myself of this. So the way it works is you set your pricing strategy, but if you know that a setting like that is going to change, you need to be considerate of the factors, right? And one thing is, you know, FX fluctuations and things like that. If you're pricing it differently into other markets, you need to potentially even put a bit of a buffer in, because you never know what's going to happen to different economies. And, you know, you're putting a price setting in that eventually you might not even be able to have a price drop in that other country because of the way that the currency is, and they hedge it and everything, but it still has an impact. Given that they've got that extra $50, it sort of then kind of makes sense for the Australian context. It should have been priced at, I think it was $450, but it was $500 Australian. Now, that allows them to go, okay, well, we're priced it at, essentially $4.99. We can drop it to $3.99 in Australia within a year or 18 months. And as a pricing strategy, you'd set that at the start. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. I'm going to call this out if I am able to guess this. But I thought that was a really, really interesting part of the article. The other one was that I think more people picked up on around the direct question was asked, hey, how are you going to recoup your investment? I think that's how it was framed in ZeniMax, Bethesda Studios, if Elder Scrolls 6, Starfield, all these games don't come to PS5. And he straight up just said, look, from our perspective, we've looked at the numbers and it will stack up even if we don't release it on PS5. Like, that was super interesting to me. That to me indicates their own modeling of what's going to happen with Game Pass. It's just going to be like, they're going to be making bank through that. So then even more the lens of, just getting people on Xbox as cheaply as possible or on PC is going to be the key to the strategy, or getting it available on lots of different systems. And that kind of gets me to the last point around Nintendo. Now, Phil Spencer has been going out of control, just celebrating Nintendo recently, like talking on and on about how good Animal Crossing is, how great Nintendo is, allowing, big Microsoft characters to be in Smash Brothers, like lots of things, right? And then in this article, they're sort of hinting at Game Pass coming to Switch. And he's very coy about it. He's sort of, saying, yeah, I'd love to have it on, but at one point he was like, I think you need them to answer the question. And man, I'm starting to think, I think there's a real chance that Nintendo does do a deal with Microsoft in some ways to get something like an xCloud onto the Switch and then have a revenue share deal or something along those lines. Because from a business sense, it makes a lot of sense with, Xbox picks up a bunch of people, gets subscriptions. Microsoft's already shown a propensity to do revenue sharing deals. They've recently done a deal with GameSpot in America that if they sell subscriptions in store, GameSpot gets a cut of that profit permanently, or for a timed period of time at least, like a trail. And yeah, I think like Nintendo, maybe they would pick up 20% of that revenue of Game Pass, and then maybe they'll have some restrictions on how it would work, but that would be really interesting, man. Imagine like being able to play xCloud on your Switch.
Well,
like, that'd be cool.
That's been a rumor for a long time.
I know.
And if Nintendo doesn't allow it, but then allows a game like Pantsu Hunter on the store, or oh my god, there's so many bad games like that are just like, how does Nintendo of old would not allow this on? What is going on? What's happening? Like, and I know it's very different, but it's
not because of that. It's not because of the adult nature. They're not worried about that. Obviously,
I know.
They're worried about the business.
I know. I just wanted to mention Pantsu Hunter. Anytime I can bring up the fact that that's on Nintendo eShop, I will. But yeah, it makes sense to me. What makes sense to me even more is that they just bring across more titles just natively, like rare replay and stuff we've talked about.
Well, they've actually, like, that was another part of the article that they were sort of saying that they're going to start limiting that type of stuff.
But rare replay out of every single
I don't think
thing.
it's going to happen. No. So look, he pretty much, if you read between the lines, saying like they want to stop doing that stuff. But to me, from a business perspective, I read it as we've played nice with Nintendo. We've shown what we can do. We want more of these games in the gamers' hands, but through Game Pass, through xCloud. Now, if you want to have the rare replay, okay, you got to do it through xCloud or Game Pass or whatever. And that's the gateway in. And given the new president of Nintendo, he seems much, much more willing to do deals like this. My gut feel is when they announce the Switch Pro next year, I wouldn't be shocked if part of the announcement is like a partnership with Microsoft to enable something like an xCloud. And they'll do it in a way that protects Nintendo, as they always want to do, but allows you to play even further sort of next-gen titles on the Switch as long as well with all the exclusives on the Switch. And that's a win-win for both parties. I think Microsoft would be more than happy to be making X amount of dollars per month for quote-unquote Xbox gamers, and they're just playing with a Switch. Like, they don't lose in that equation, and Nintendo doesn't really lose either, because a lot of those titles aren't going to be coming out to Nintendo anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where everything's at in 5 years. That's all.
Oh yeah. It's super interesting. Hey, it's like, I don't know. I love the business side of things, and it's like,
oh really? I couldn't tell.
But it's super fascinating because I don't think we've ever seen a generation where all three competitors have literally got different strategies. Like, it's crazy. It's like, I've never seen it. And I'm really impressed with Phil Spencer and the team, like, because they're clear third and they have to do something completely different, and they've gone really hard in that direction. And people like me who are, lapsed Xbox gamers, I'm like, I keep looking at it and go, Game Pass, it's a pretty good deal. It's going to get me. It's going to get me eventually, man. And that's like an impressive thing about a business model. If eventually people just feel like, I'm going to get on top of this. So, and maybe let's get into other news just around availability of consoles. So I was chatting to my local, so this is only like me confirming this really. So you have to take my word for it. So I was in my local EB and I know the store manager, and I was kind of chatting about the PS5 and Xbox, and I was interested to know if they're going to do like walk-in consoles. They've always had walk-ins, right? Like, you line up, you get your console, and the COVID situation in Australia, it's pretty decent in New South Wales.
God, I can't even walk into the EB at the moment anyway, physically.
You have to call them, right?
By the way, I think they've increased us to 25 kilometers. Or they're going to, at least. I
heard that. Yeah, I'm glad that they'll slowly start opening up, and hopefully finally my parents can meet my new son that they haven't met for like 2 months. It's like crazy, man. They haven't met him yet. He's not even going to be like a little baby. But anyway, so I was chatting to the store manager, and I was just asking, hey, what are they going to do? And she was just like, look, they're not going to have any consoles, like, at all from a walk-in perspective in 2020 for Series X and PS5. So, I mean, like, that's probably not a shock, but yeah, it's like pre-orders only. And then the other thing she said was that Sony reached out to EB and told them to stop offering pre-orders for 2021 for PS5s. And it was essentially because they did not know what level of consoles they'd be able to manufacture or something like that. I was like, whoa, this is some juicy details for the potty this week.
You're the man in the know. You got the connections.
But I mean, it all makes sense though when you think about it, right? Like a pandemic and everything like that, and the consoles are hot, man. People are really wanting to buy these consoles. So yeah, so I don't know how you're gonna get your Series X this year, dude.
I've said from the start that unless something changes, I wouldn't want one until next year anyway. So
okay, I'll say it like this. My gut feel for you is that when if you see it in store, when Victoria opens up and everything, and they finally have it in store, it's probably 2021. You'll just bite the bullet one day. You'll see it in the store and go, stuff it. Oh yeah, I'll buy one of these.
See, I said before, like, I need a reason for those new consoles. So I got my One X because I was playing a game that ran like absolute crap, and I heard that it was optimized for the One X, so it ran at a higher frame rate. So that's why I bought a One X. So as I said, like, if there's a Dark Souls 3 remastered that runs at 60 frames, that's when I'll get the Series X. Okay.
So if you're a PS gamer, you probably would go across, given Jesus, like I've blanked on the name of the game that's getting remastered, that's releasing on PS5.
Demon's Souls.
Demon's Souls. It's a freaking hard name to say as well. So yeah, so you would have probably dipped into the PS5 then, if you're a PS gamer.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I guess that's less of a remaster, and that's a remake.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that would have been the type of game that you'd be like, all right, I'm getting in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so many of the games, especially with Xbox, are, available on the current gen. It sort of doesn't give you much of a reason to jump across.
Yeah, like Valhalla is the one game that I'm super pumped to play, and I'm going to be playing that on the One X. So
Yeah, you did slip last time that you would want to play it on the Series X. It's tempting.
that's the only game that would tempt me. But but as I said, like I'd rather play the worst version first anyway, because with to get a little off topic,
It's achievements, isn't it? You're gonna say.
so I've mentioned many times I focus on RPGs. I don't care about achievements in other games, with one big series exception, which is Assassin's Creed. Now, the interesting part is that the recent titles are now RPGs, so it's they've met in the middle. So now it's true. Now I only focus on RPGs.
Changed. Yeah, they've changed for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into some entertainment news. The Monster Hunter movie trailer came out. I'll let you take the reins on this one.
Okay, so we've had a few teasers for a while, but the new Monster Hunter movie trailer got shown off for the first time. So the movie stars Mila Jovovich. I never know how to say that. Tony Jaa, who I found out this week, you have no idea who Tony Jaa is, so that's good timing. And
I still don't.
Yeah, and T.I. So it's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, best known recently, at least in the last couple of decades, for the amazingly well-received Resident Evil movie series.
Isn't he also the husband of Mila Jovovich?
I believe so. I don't. I guess we can quickly.
Or is it the producer?
No, they're definitely connected in some way, but it's one of those things where you just never know if people still together or not. But the flip side is he also directed Mortal Kombat, the Mortal Kombat movie. So he directed what a lot of people consider as the best video game movie, but also some of the worst video game movies that weren't made by Uwe Boll. So
I don't think Mortal Kombat's regarded as one of the best.
Lot of people, I consider it the best video game movie. Yeah,
from like a cheesy perspective.
No, just the fact that it's true to the games. It's when you take it as a movie and say, how does this stack up against other movies, then that is a very different thing. But when you're talking about as a video game movie that is there for pure entertainment, that's okay, how faithful it is to the games, how much does it make you feel like it's part of the games? Mortal Kombat is very well considered. It's also got Fear Factory in the soundtrack. I mean, come on, NKFMDM. So. Mortal Kombat is a lot of people consider that. Like that, that's not a controversial opinion. That is a common opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I just checked. They are married.
Okay. So the trailer shows off, honestly, some really good monster designs.
Yes, I'll give it that. Give it that. The monsters look pretty cool.
It has Black Diablos, Gore Magala, who I'm not familiar with because I've only played World, and Rathalos, of course. And the movie is coming out the end of the year, December 30th in the US. Who knows what is? I don't even. The concept of going to cinemas in Australia, at this point, it's just over.
Okay, so we're going to keep reminding the audience, you're in lockdown in Victoria, which is the second biggest state in Australia. I'm not in lockdown in the biggest state in Australia. We actually have very similar case numbers for coronavirus. And honestly, things are just kind of like normal in New South Wales, in Sydney.
So,
and I'm still debating, I'm going to go see Tenet at the cinemas.
So, as for the trailer itself, it looks like terrible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank God you said that.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to say it looks good. I was like, what?
It looks terrible, but it looks horrible, but it also looks like it might be a little bit of fun. But the thing is, you watch this movie, you don't go into this thinking you're going to get something with great acting and stuff. Like the fact that Tony Jaa's in it and he's playing the hunter, like the way that he's dressed up when he's got the bow, like there's some elements. So I should state as well. So it seems like it's the whole isekai thing with, okay, there's a whole bunch of like Marines or whatever, or soldiers, and they get pulled into the Monster Hunter world,
Yeah,
which I was
world.
actually happy it happened that way, not the other way. So I really hope that most of the film is set in the Monster Hunter kind of world, and not, 2/3 of the way through the film that they go in there, and the first
Dude,
2/3 are the monsters come into our world.
That's the whole movie. That's what it will be. I feel like we could make up what the movie is. They're, this ragtag group. They're sort of like not doing too well. They want to retire the team or whatever. They get sucked into this portal. They demonstrate they're good, and then they're trying to stop them from going into our world, quote unquote. And they think they have, but one monster does get through, Rathalos, I'm guessing, into our world. And then it's for this team. They're the only team that can do it. And they're going back to Earth, and they kill the monster.
I think Rathalos is going to end up being a good guy in this. Actually, I reckon Rathalos will end up.
Well, anyway, I don't. I'm actually not that close to Monster Hunter, but that's the kind of shape of the movie that they're going to do.
Yeah, but I just didn't want it to be like a Smurfs in New York thing, where,
oh no, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. Because I think they also want to keep the budget low, so it's way cheaper to film like in the jungles and the deserts and stuff like that. Like if you look at the trailer, it has no like extras. It's like nothing to keep the movie cheap.
So on the visual side, like there's some stuff that's done really well. From the trailer, there's a shot that looks straight out of Monster Hunter World, where there's like the tropical lush like beach with the monsters walking around and stuff. That looks straight out of the first area of Monster Hunter World. So there's some stuff that's really cool. Paul W.S. Anderson's also mentioned, it seems like he actually does have a real liking for the series, or at least know some stuff about it, because he's been talking about like palicos and stuff, and obviously part of that's marketing and things. But
yeah, but dude, like look at Resident Evil, man.
I know. Like I'm not saying, that's what I said. It looks terrible, but I'm just trying to pull out some of the positives before I just crap all over it. So there's some elements that I think that are interesting, and it's something I should be keen to watch. But I have no delusions that this is going to be anything but an absolute just piece of crap. So yeah. I just hope that some of the action scenes are cool. Like as I said, Tony Jaa is awesome. Like Ong Bak and the Protector and everything. Those films are so good. So I hope he gets to do a bit of his martial arts Muay Thai stuff. That'd be cool. But yeah, it's other than that, I don't know. I'm guessing. Yeah, I already know you think it's terrible. But any other thoughts?
Well, no, it's okay. So my thoughts around this are just that I haven't seen the Sonic movie, but I've heard positive things about it. I actually really liked the Pokemon movie. I feel like, those type of game movies, like they're getting better.
Detective Pikachu, you mean?
Yeah, but it's a Pokemon movie, right, dude?
Yeah, but the Pokemon's had many movies, so I just wanted to clarify. You meant
sure, okay, yeah, fair enough. But that one in particular, like what I'm saying is, a lot of these movies, they're actually, it's not just let's just put a B tier movie out and put a license around it, right? Like, I feel like some of these movies are actually trying to be half-decent movies now. And to me, this is just such a throwback to just, a crap movie and put a license around it. And it just, in the combination of the husband and wife team here, just make it, I won't watch it. Like, not interested.
The thing is, unlike, say, Resident Evil and things like that, I think if you're going to do it to a series, like, Monster Hunter's okay to do a schlocky action film. You don't need a deep plot. You just need people fighting monsters. That's it.
I just don't think they'll make a good movie though. They haven't been making good movies.
Oh no, I don't think they will. Like honestly, the first Resident Evil wasn't too bad, but anything after that, like I tried to watch the sequel and then just never watched any of the rest of them. So I can't personally say it, but I think people would understand why even if we haven't seen it, to say that they're not that great. But yeah, it's
and yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just say I'm keen to give it a shot. I'm not going to go see this at cinemas, but if it jumps on a streaming platform, I'll give it a shot.
I don't think they'll have cinemas in Victoria anytime soon. I think by the time the run of this movie ends, they won't even have it. So And was there anything else you wanted to cover with the Monster Hunter
No,
trailer?
I think we said all we need to say about Monster Hunter.
That was quite
Directed by Paul
quite
Paul W.S. Anderson, starring Mil Jovovich.
Yeah, I don't think we have confirmation about the Australian release date, so we'll bring you the latest Monster Hunter movie news. And let's keep it on entertainment, I guess you could say. Various forms of entertainment. Let's get into the next story. So around a adult entertainer, maybe you can cover this as well. You're very familiar with her work.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm wondering where all our Patreon money is going, to this random OnlyFans account. I don't even know what this website is. But yeah, go on.
We have Patreon. Wow. Okay, I need to get into that. So an adult entertainer and I guess a adult TikTok influencer called Pokeprincxss.
No, she can't be an adult TikTok. You can't have adult material like that on TikTok.
No, but okay, all right, whatever. She's a TikTok influencer. Jesus, semantics.
Sorry.
Has been forced to rebrand her name Pokeprincxss after a copyright infringement or cease and desist from Nintendo. So this kind of blew up across a lot of sites, and it's. I think there's just some interesting stuff about this particular story. So apparently, she's got a video that she put up on YouTube channel that is very, very safe for work. So no concerns about that.
Well, I hope so, because it's playing in our YouTube feed.
Exactly. I wouldn't put that otherwise.
I skipped through it. I had to actually skip through it just to double check.
So she'd apparently used the name online for about 8 years, and the video is actually really good. So she really, really, explains everything. And she has such a love for Nintendo. Obviously, she's got like tattoos of Pokemon all over and everything. So obviously, she loves Pokemon, but she's also so understanding. So she basically she trademarked the name or put in an application for trademark and started selling merchandise that actually had at least Pokeballs on them. I heard maybe Pokemon as well. And at that point, Nintendo obviously paid attention and sent the letter. So she's since rebranded to Digital Princess. But it's really interesting to me because there's so much out there that people like, merchandise and Etsy's and stuff where people do put stuff on. But I think once you start crossing over into the world of, like adult entertainment or porn or anything, then it's really interesting, I think, to see Nintendo's approach to this. And she's apparently had to actually pay back everything that she'd made selling that merchandise. So I don't know. That could be a very minimal amount. I have no idea. But it's...
Well, can I just pause you there? Because she's going to make way more than she ever made before.
Exactly.
Like, we're talking about it,
Yeah, exactly. And it's when I saw this story, it's like, oh, that's a given. That's stupid why we do that. But like when you watch the video, like I think she's really, really genuine. And I think it's
I agree.
It's the same week. I think we also had the Missing Link, a Nintendo fan game, also get taken down or a cease and desist or something as well. Yeah. But so Nintendo's very, they're always on the ball with this stuff. Sometimes they hit it quite late, when things have come out, which would probably be frustrating. Like was the Metroid 2 remake, the one that they made in the like Metroid Fusion style or whatever.
Yeah, Return of Samus. Yeah, and then they remade it in Game Maker and released it.
Yeah, and I think like they're different because they aren't attempting to make money off it, whereas this, she's trying to make money off, their copyright. And I think, like it was just really, really interesting. Like when you read the article in Kotaku and gamesindustry.biz and that, but also just watch the video. It's just, I think, it's good to see a story where someone's just like, no, I understand. I can't do this,
She seems like a very cool chick and like very reasonable. Like, I have zero interest in this whole space, these influencers, TikTok, not TikTok, park that, but like the OnlyFans stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, she seemed pretty cool about it. Like, hey, don't hate on Nintendo. Totally understand where they're coming from. I'm paying it all back. It's all cool, right? And she is going to make all the money back anyway, but it didn't strike me as like she's doing it to like manipulate the situation or anything, or a marketing scheme. If she is, she's a genius, because the way she acted in the video is very genuine. Like I didn't get that sense at all. She was being sneaky, but I'm still shocked at how people react to these stories. Like, people obviously don't understand how copyright works. If you don't enforce your copyright, you essentially start to lose it and it starts to diminish. So it's not like Nintendo being a bad operator. That's the copyright system, the way the world works. And if you don't go after people for, taking your designs and trying to sell them and knock them off, if you don't go after them, then certain jurisdictions, you start to lose the right to actually retain them. So that's not in the US, but worldwide. So they kind of have to go after people. And in this case, she's starting to get some press and all this other kind of stuff. And she was selling off knockoff merchandise, essentially. So, I think the way she handled it is the right way. Hey, I wasn't doing the right thing. I got caught. Move on. The thing that interests me a little bit is with the tattoos, because she's got Pokemon tattoos, right?
Yep.
Now, I haven't looked at her merch, but I wonder if she's got like anything of her, like photos of her or anything like that. Like, because there's been more and more lawsuits about tattoos in video games in particular. Like, can you legally use tattoos and likenesses of tattoos?
Bloody Randy Orton. It's always Randy Orton.
Well, no, it's happening on both fronts. It's like some tattoo artists are suing games companies as well, because they're saying, well, that's my artwork and I only gave a license for the person to put it on their body.
The Randy Orton thing is that.
Is that as well? Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I was just thinking because it happened with LeBron James.
Yeah. So it's
in basketball.
It's a similar thing. We had a story that was tentative.
Yeah, we have.
About, and then I took it out because it was something that kind of was an old story that just resurfaced. But it's interesting. Like, even another wrestler, CM Punk, he has a Pepsi tattoo on his upper shoulder, and whenever he's in the games, that Pepsi tattoo is something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's it's
interesting.
So
that's a weird edge case that I just wonder, like, if you're selling a video and you've got that, it's I guess legally you'd probably go, people aren't watching the video to look at the Pokemon character designs, they're looking at other things. So to put it delicately, but yeah, it's an interesting case. I think she's handled it really well. She's going to make a stack of money from it, gain a bunch of OnlyFans fans. So I think kind of like everyone wins. So in a way.
So when are you starting your OnlyFans?
Soon, hopefully. So there's no segue here.
All that dirty business talk. Just
yeah, exactly. So there's no good segue here. So I just launch into, because these aren't associated, these topics. But beyond the summit. Sorry. So beyond the summit, I don't know if you've heard of it, Swinny, but you would have, right? Like, they host a lot of really, really cool events, and invitational Smash events and other events as well for other games. But essentially what they've always been good at is getting the top like 12, 16, 8 players and, putting them in tournaments and doing lots of fun stuff with them. So they're actually sponsoring Slippi. So Slippi being the online Melee emulator that has rollback netcode in it. And they've made a really mini tournament out of it. And I just wanted to flag it because you know that I love rules and complicated like rules and everything like that.
Yes, of course.
This is so up my alley. Like, it's insane, right? They've made it so that there's 3 divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, in which 3 is kind of like an open division. And then it's like there's 8 people in each division. And they have a knockout system. So this is almost like in soccer. So they seeded the top 8. It's a single elimination tournament, and they're running it over 4 weeks, right? And genuinely, they got the best players in those regions. So it's all like North America because of the lag, which is kind of makes me laugh because the person who promoted Slippi the most is Leffen, who is based in Sweden, and he's not able to compete in this, which, I don't know, just makes me laugh so much. But anyway, and there's $5,000 worth of prizes each week, which is pretty big for a Smash tournament. And yeah, so they've got it. So they set it up as division thing, and then it has relegation. So for instance, Hungrybox lost his first game, so he was eliminated from that, Division 1 tournament. Then he had to play a winner from Division 2. If he'd lost that, the Division 2 person gets in and he gets bumped down to Division 2 for the next week. And you actually had Axe, who's very good Pikachu player, like the best Pikachu ever in Melee, actually made the character viable. He got relegated into Div 2. So I just love this. I love how like complex they've made this for like 4 weeks. And I think it's also got something to do with Fizzy, who's the guy behind Slippi. He's always wanted Melee to be considered like a sport. So yeah, I feel like there's a bit of that tone on it as well. So yeah, really cool. I watched a bit of the first week. The second week's happening at the moment, I believe. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. Mango, one of the 5 gods, won the first week's tournament, which was pretty cool, against one of the up-and-coming players, Zane. So yeah, it was really cool. I don't know, did you get a chance to check out any of it?
No, I want there to be a tournament where they just like, all right, we're going to roll a dice, and then suddenly Poker Floats comes up as the stage they have to compete on in the final or something. Like, to me, that's the stuff. It's like the whole, football, soccer thing is that, I'm not a big sports person anyway. You are.
No.
But I just would love there to be, like, I think it's a Jimoan joke or something where it's like they're suddenly multi-ball and there's 10 soccer balls on them.
Always say that.
I love it. Like, I just want there to be something like kind of like an NFL Blitz, but in real life. Of like, man, let's have like.
But they don't work.
No, but the point is, I'm not saying a serious thing, just a fun. We're going to have a fun match where there's 10 balls. And how many goals they can get,
They kind of do that. So they, like, various... I can't think off the top of my head in football. So when I say football, I mean, like, soccer, association football. I can't think of an example in football, but in everything else that I follow, there's always, like, something they do, which is kind of like the arcade, quote-unquote, version.
But it's always boring. So, it's always just like, oh...
not really.
No, but it's always like, oh, it's quicker and stuff. It's not like there's 6 balls on the field, Like,
No, the NFL had one where it was like you had to hit certain targets and like things would move and they'd have moving targets. And no, I don't agree with that. Like, I think they've like the NBA has done heaps of work in this space around their All-Star game. They're getting celebrities to play with the professionals. Like, they have like shooting competitions, dunk competitions. Like, I think they've done that. The thing is, ultimately, that's good for a novelty, but there's no audience for that permanently, or else it would be a sport, right? Like, the real funny stuff. I get what you're saying, but it just doesn't really work in the long run.
Anyway, back to Melee. I just like just throwing curveballs, and I'm a person that likes playing with stage hazards, so that's just the kind of person I am.
Yeah, but you're fine either way, really. But the one thing I will say is, like, and it's been kind of cool because some of these new guys coming into Smash Melee, they've been picking up characters that haven't been popular. Like even Pikachu coming through, right? But I think it's weird because Melee, the foundations of Melee, I get how it's competitive. I can watch it and get it. But to me, watching Ultimate is just more enjoyable because there's so many more characters, stages. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Melee feels like a bit too like small or something like that. It's like not enough variety for me. Feels like I'm always watching Foxes and Falcos play all the time. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm keeping my eye on it, and I really hope that Slippi continues to grow. All right, well, let's get into my favorite segment before we jump into Donkey Kong Country 2. The bargain bin for Sunday, the 18th of October. So, as we normally do, we kick off with Epic Games. This week, Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs is free this week, same as Kingdom New Lands, which has previously been free. Next week, we've got sequels, Costume Quest 2 and Layers of Fear 2 free. So not like necessarily really heavy hitters recently, but what they do normally is some really crazy stuff around Christmas. So yeah, just keep your eye out for that kind of stuff as we lead into Christmas. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a daily thing as they did last year.
Costume Quest 2 is good, so pick that up definitely.
Oh, cool. Wow, I always pick up every single game. And we didn't really have any call-outs on the Switch or PlayStation this week. Xbox, I'll throw it to you.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of announcements.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to do something just not different, but I'm just going to just talk about something for a little bit before I get into everything. So the biggest news story for me personally, or biggest thing this week, was the fact that Tales of Vesperia is now, Definitive Edition is now in Game Pass on Xbox and PC. And I've talked about Vesperia before. It is one of my favorite all-time games, my top 10.
Oh.
And you were as surprised last time I mentioned this as this time. You just probably don't remember it was Vesperia I was talking about. So Tales of Vesperia is just an absolutely phenomenal game. And the fact that I bought this when it came out for like 60, 80 bucks or whatever it was Australian, the fact that it's now in Game Pass is just amazing. Like anyone, like I cannot recommend this game enough. And what the reason why it's so big for me this week is because it's now on the Windows Store and now has an achievement list.
A separate achievement list.
Oh, man, a separate achievement list. And
what are you going to do if they ever unify it so that you play on anything, it's just the same achievements?
Well, they do some of that already.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, this game is a beast. So the first time I beat all the achievements in the first, because there's 3 other versions, took me 180 hours to do. And the thing is, and I definitely got that quicker the second 2 times I did it. Like Definitive Edition has more to it as well, so I had to figure that out. But I actually devised an entire gigantic tracker for the Definitive Edition. So when it came out, Definitive Edition includes the PS3 content. Tales of Vesperia originally came out on Xbox 360, then got ported to PS3. And they had additional content, characters and stuff. So when the Definitive Edition came out, all my past information I had to track how to complete this game, because there's a lot going on in this game for the completion, was all outdated and all wrong. So I had to get the Japanese Tales of Vesperia list. And so my tracker is all like half of it in Japanese is like spreadsheets, there's thousands of rows tracking all the items and monsters. And I'm like, I did all that work. And now when this came in, I'm like, I've got it all set up. I'm ready to go. I'm so wrapped. So anyone, I cannot recommend this game enough. So just wanted to really call that out. But there's actually...
Look, to be honest, I've heard other podcasts where they talk about this game. It's kind of a weird game for me because
so good.
It obviously didn't break through like the mainstream consciousness. Because I don't know, I just don't really hear about it, but I do hear about it.
So it was a big release when it came out, but it kind of did get lost in the annals a bit. There's been lots of Tales games since. None have actually come to Xbox.
Bit of a hidden gem, you'd say, a hidden gem.
Yeah, it's weird. This was actually Definitive Edition was announced at the Xbox E3 conference of all things. Like that was a weird thing to see. Like I was super pumped, but everyone else was like, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah, I mean the game has sold 1.5 million total.
Yeah,
when you include all versions, all ports, remasters, everything.
So it's
That's pretty low.
One thing I'll say as well is that it has easily the best main character of any RPG I've ever played, and I've played a lot. Oh yeah,
okay, right.
Oh yeah.
Wait a second.
Easy.
This is the second best RPG player in the world saying this main character is the best main character in RPG. That's huge.
For me, because...
How have you not been pitching them as a Smash character?
Well, people want Lloyd from Symphonia. Lloyd.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that. Yeah.
So it's odd because he's different. He's such a... And he's voiced by Troy Baker as well, which is cool. The weird part, though, is that...
Is it Yuri? Is that right?
Yeah, Yuri. So the weird part is...
So you're going for Yuri. This is your dream character.
The thing is that for the Definitive Edition, there's new dialogue, and they didn't get Troy Baker to do the new dialogue, so you got a different voice actor, so it's a little awkward when it swaps. They tried, but Troy Baker actually said that he never got asked to do those new lines, which is weird, but... I mean, he's a big voice actor, so that's probably why. But
they don't want to pay him.
Yeah. So, all right, I just wanted to really call that out. That's a huge ad to Game Pass, but there's some other huge ads this week. It's been a massive Game Pass week. So
it has actually, yeah.
So Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition is now available on PC. which I might actually give that a shot. I own Age of Empires 3, but it's all on DVDs, so I can't play them. Katana Zero is now available on Xbox and PC, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah, well, there's a hell of a lot of hype around that game. Some people had it as their game of the year.
Yeah, it's it looks super stylish.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And yeah, again, you just play it, right? Game Pass.
Exactly. A game I love, I've never played, but I've loved watching a lot of people play is Heave Ho on PC. I wish that was on console because that would be much easier to get people to play it. Really, really cool co-op, game where you control your different limbs and you move around the environment. Really cool style to it. So it's available now. Also available now is the Swords of Ditto Mormo's Curse on PC, which I don't know much about. So upcoming, we've got Scourgebringer on Xbox on October 21st. We've got Cricket 19 on Xbox.
Woo! Cricket 19,
October
baby.
22nd. The like
some people say it's not a bad game though.
the box art, or at least like some key art for it, looks like the most boring. People basically like they're just standing there. I'm like, man, you can make it look a bit more exciting.
And it's from an Australian studio.
Yeah, I think they just needed.
So harsh.
I think they needed to maybe just make that a bit more exciting. But
uncompromising, independent news from Big League.
So, and just at the midnight hour yesterday, I checked the news again. I'm like, God damn, there's more Game Pass announcements. So on the 29th, there's a huge trio hitting that I'm so pumped for. So we've got big LucasArts trilogy. Grim Fandango Remastered, Day of the Tentacle Remastered, and Full Throttle Remastered, all coming on October 29th for Xbox and PC Game Pass. Interestingly, some of these games had actually been available on PS Plus before, but this is the first time they're available on Xbox in general, not just Game Pass. They've never been on Xbox. So I'm pumped.
I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah, they're brand new as well. So I love Grim Fandango so much. It's been years since I played it, so I'd probably forgotten a lot of the puzzles. So I'm looking forward to that. Day of the Tentacle, I used to speedrun that game. Like when I say speedrun, personally, just play through it quickly, not like go on Speed Demos Archive and put my times up. So I used to speedrun Day of the Tentacle, so I'm pumped to play that again. And Full Throttle, never played through completely, but I do like what I played of that game in the past. So man,
so just on Full Throttle, so like I don't know why, but this is gonna super date me, but I remember Video Easy. It was like the Blockbuster equivalent in Australia. It's kind of weird when you think back at this, but they used to rent games. Now people kind of know concept of that now. It kind of made sense for Super Nintendo, Genesis, stuff like that. You rent game, okay, it's a cartridge slotted in, but they would actually rent PC games as well.
On CD,
yeah, but it kind of didn't make sense because I used to borrow the games and sometimes they wouldn't work because it was like a one-off key or something like that. And then they'd still put it up on the shelf. It's like so bizarre. So the one game I always wanted to play just because of the box art was Full Throttle. Like they had the limited edition, which was the extra wide big box. And I don't know, just it's back in the day where box art was like huge. It just looked so sick. I was like, damn, I really want to borrow this game. But for whatever reason, it was more expensive to borrow. And I just didn't know anything about the game. But I kind of wish I had borrowed it because it was, a really great game from all accounts.
So a friend of ours is actually a huge fan of it. And he introduced me to Full Throttle. And it's got, because I really like that they've also got like the actual motorbike sections in it as well as the actual point and click. I love LucasArts games so much. And I'm so happy. I was so happy when they did the remakes of Monkey Island 1 and 2, and I hope that someday they do a remaster of the number 3 as well. That's my favorite Monkey Island. So all right, so with all these being added, we do have some that are leaving Game Pass. So on October 30th, we've got After Party leaving on Xbox console. We've got Lego Star Wars 3, which is a backwards compatible game. The Clone Wars, that's leaving as well. Rise and Shine, which is a pretty cool, I think it's like a run and gun on Xbox. And on Xbox and PC, we've got Tacoma leaving, and we've got Lord of the Rings Adventure card game leaving.
Ah, damn.
Yeah, you, that huge Lord of the Rings buff.
Well, Tacoma is a very short game. It's supposed to be pretty decent. I've got it. That's definitely a game that you could crack on, get through in like a few days. So, if you haven't played that game, you definitely want to play it. I would crack into that now. Yeah, no, it's very good. Like, it's a really funny thing with Game Pass. Like, I'm always on the border of getting it. I think especially now that the strategy is to have a lot of PC stuff early. And they want to get it on PC day and date and stuff like that. And
Dude,
especially with Doom Eternal, when that's on PC, I'm like, oh, it's going to be really hard to not get that.
Dude, it's been crazy. Like, so I didn't have Game Pass until like kind of early this year, and the amount of games I haven't bought a new game, with the exception of Chemco games, in so long, and and Amalur and there's Chemco games. So it's because like the Outer Worlds Game Pass, it's the fact that there's just so many games that come out. We've almost become the Game Pass subscription podcast, and I kind of want. I think it's genuine, the fact that if you do play a lot of games, you're gonna get no doubt you're gonna get your money's worth. There's no question.
Oh yeah. That's it's more the case of like Netflix. If you don't watch it, that's when you lose value.
Yeah.
If you watch it, like you're gonna be ahead for sure. And I think we're pretty fair with most of these things. Like you definitely skew more Xbox, but I think you're still fair in when you're looking at that stuff. And I think you just gotta call it as you see it. It's like it's a good deal. Like PlayStation people, like heavy PlayStation podcasts, they call it out and say it's a good deal as well. I think it's gonna be interesting when. Like, I don't know, I get the sense it will come to Nintendo Switch Game Pass. And then at that stage, PlayStation users are going to be like, oh, damn, I wish we had that. Because their version of it is crap compared to what Microsoft are doing. So, no, it's awesome. Awesome. Lots of good deals there. Lots of cool games to play.
Play Vesperia. Tales of Vesperia.
Well, because it's on PC, man. I'm like looking at it going... I'm so cheap. I just want like a free 1 month trial with Game Pass.
God.
To see how much I would actually play it. But yeah, no, it's very enticing, dude. It's very enticing. All right, well, let's get it cracking into our special segment this week. So this week, as part of a running series now, we're going to go through all the Donkey Kong Country series.
Oh, that nearly went sideways.
So we've already done Donkey Kong Country, and now we've got Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. You played it on Nintendo Switch Online because it came available recently on that, correct?
Correct.
And I intended, and I've already played it on my analog, but I'm actually changing the whole setup in my room and everything like that. So I ended up just playing it on the Switch because it was just more convenient and sort of made more sense for what I needed to do.
Ooh, controversial.
Well, why is it controversial?
Because you've talked up that analog DAC so much, and then you went with the easy option.
Oh no, it's just because I had to buy a shelf, and I'm moving my Trinitron into the office. And then it's kind of like halfway through, and I just didn't have time this week.
Okay.
So. But yeah, did you want to take us off with Donkey Kong Country 2?
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, Donkey Kong Country 2 is the sequel to Donkey Kong Country 1. Now back to you.
You're an idiot.
No, so the game came out Super Nintendo, as most people know, but it's had many re-releases, as said, like Virtual Console releases and things. I'm not sure if it got a Game Boy Advance port or not.
It did.
It did,
so
yeah.
That's probably the notable one because it's not just a straight port. Like, they did make adjustments to it. So there's like some of the levels are different, and there's some stuff in the Game Boy Advance that's not in the SNES version, but the definitive version is the SNES version.
And so developed by Rare, as most people would know, published by Nintendo, and came out around December 1995, give or take, depending on the region. It actually came out a little early in Japan. So yeah, this game is almost like a cornerstone of the SNES library. It's the one out of the whole series that everyone kind of always talks about. It's the Mass Effect 2 of the Donkey Kong Country series. You could say.
It's the Empire Strike Back.
Yes,
of the original trilogy. It might not be everyone's favorite in the trilogy.
No,
but I would say it is the emergent favorite. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I don't think it's debatable that you can't say it is the favorite overall.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I never had this game as a kid. You did.
Yes,
I
I
did.
did. You had the first one, and did you have the third one as well?
So I never owned the third one, but I borrowed it for a long time off a mate. And
Because for me, it felt like you had it. Because
no,
you had it all the time.
no,
So I just assumed you had it.
no. So I didn't get many games as a kid on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
But my mate seemed to always get the games or knew. I don't know how. Well, actually, I do know how his family.
Yeah, I think we know how.
Yeah.
let's keep going for legal reasons.
But so he would, and he was awesome. He would just lend me the games like for like a month or something. But so I actually borrowed this off you. So it's kind of like, that just goes to show how long we've been friends, that when this game came out, in those years, that I borrowed this game off you.
That is crazy when you think how old we are, right? Like this game came out and I was conscious and like playing games, got it, and then we talked about it and you played my version of it. Far out. Yeah. That's wild, man.
Yeah. So this isn't, like two people just met up to do a podcast. It's like over 25 years.
That's so funny, man.
So yeah, it's because I own Donkey Kong Country 1, and I think you mentioned this when we reviewed Donkey Kong Country 1, that I had a lot more of a connection to number 1 than I think you did.
I didn't really play number 1 when it came out.
So the fact that I didn't own number 2 means that we kind of had, I guess, slightly different approaches to it. I think you were... I loved the game, but because I didn't have it, I was always like... appreciating it from afar a bit until I get those opportunities to play it,
And can we just also say, so like, because we are so old, it's like black and white TV or something. You need to give the context of the situation, really. Like, it's so long ago. Really, the only thing we ever heard about games was like on the playground, and people would make up lies. And then the other part of it was that you'd see it through magazines. But now, now that we're a bit more cynical, the magazines, for the most part, were owned by the publishers or the platform creator. So of course they're saying this game's great. And it's like a really crappy game. And then you find out later it was owned by Nintendo, the magazine that you're buying.
Oh, Hyper wasn't. Hyper was really...
They weren't. And that's, I've got a stack of episodes. I've got all the issues behind me, actually. I should put it on display. But and just before we go further into the review, I want to clarify, because what I'm saying about the Donkey Kong Country series, like this has become a series of reviews now. I should just call out, like, we're going to do 1, 2, and 3, the original trilogy on the SNES, and then we're going to cover the Donkey Kong Country Returns game on the Wii, and then Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is Wii U, and then came out on Switch as well.
So are you going to play Returns on the Wii or the 3DS?
No, I'll do it on the Wii.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, it would be fine if it's on 3DS as well.
Yeah, so I guess the game...
These games came out 1 year after the other. It's crazy.
It is insane.
Like 94, 95, 96. That's Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. Wow.
I don't think it's going to be a spoiler or a surprise to hear that this game is just absolutely phenomenal.
It's so good.
It's crazy it's crazy this is a Super Nintendo game in so many ways. It graphically, it still looks like a masterpiece, honestly. Like, even playing it through the Switch, which is not the optimal way to play it, it still looks great. The sprite work is awesome. The art style is so much more consistent than Donkey Kong Country 1. So that game felt like a prototype in many ways. Like, it felt, even when I first played it, there's awkwardness to it. Where
it's janky.
Yeah, and
the graphics are janky, the controls are janky.
And I love Donkey Kong Country 1. It still looks great, but there's definitely, there's jankiness to it. And they just nailed the presentation here. Almost for everything. Like, I can't think of anything that looked bad in the game. It's kind of crazy.
Getting right to the end, and this is spoilers, so when you get ranked how you went and you've got the Hall of Heroes and stuff, you could argue it's like a bit funny or whatever, but Mario looks terrible in 3D model, like so bad.
But he kind of looked a little terrible in Mario RPG as well. He looked like Mario RPG Mario.
Yes. That's actually fair. That's actually really fair what you're saying. He did look terrible in RPG. So yeah, like that was the only thing that I looked at that made me go, whoa, that looks weird. Outside of that, it's literally perfection in my eyes. Like how the theme of like the graphics, it's so much better than most modern games. Like you really have distinct areas. You get a feeling for the area you're in. It's just like nothing's wasted, like the backgrounds, the foregrounds, the enemies, like everything just fits so well, and it feels very edited and refined.
Yeah, they just nailed it, and that's why that 1 year difference is just crazy to me. I have no idea how long it took them to to create these 3D graphics, and then go through the process of getting them into sprites and putting them into the SNES. It's crazy because there's so much detail in this game, and just even we're focusing on graphics now, so I get into it. Towards the end of the game, there's the level where I think it's Castle Crush, where the level's going up, and it's moving upwards, and the scrolling in the background, I'm like stopping, and I'm like, it almost looks like the 3D FX chip or whatever it's called. What was it called again? The FX
Super FX.
Super FX. I'm like, man, it almost looks like that, but I think it's just really good layer scrolling, like how they've set it all up.
This doesn't have Super FX.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks 3D as you're going up because the background looks, it looks like there's depth to it that kind of changes as you're going up. And I'm like, man, like that's stuff that I didn't probably even notice as a kid that I'm paying more attention to now. How they handle all that. Because when you jump into an emulator, and some of those emulators have the ability to turn off the different layers, Super Nintendo layers, and you're like, okay, I can see the foreground layer and the background layer, blah 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 blah. So I'm sure that you go in there, you can see how they've done it, but it's crazy. It's just absolutely insane what they've done.
And just like on the graphics, like to me, the critical parts are like the nuanced stuff, the small stuff, like that. To me, generally, Nintendo does really, really well. This is not Nintendo, but like the idle animations are so good. It's like I had to put the controller down for a second, and then I picked it back up, and it was like Diddy Kong does different things than Dixie, and it's just like this like little bits that just give the characters extra life. And I just so adamant that like this game is insane. Like this game, if I was Sony, I'd be like, oh my god, like we've released a brand new console and it looks better than almost all the games on the PS1. Like, and I'd probably still argue it still looks better than all the games that came out on the PS1. Like, if you didn't know this is a Super Nintendo game, and I was just comparing someone who didn't understand that, you'd probably think this is from a PlayStation or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and we started to see some nice sprite work. I think the Saturn had a lot of nice sprite work games, and you've got things like Symphony of the Night and stuff. But it's also just like talking about Donkey Kong Country 1, and the awkwardness there, like it looked great. The fact that they ironed all that out, and it just it looks smooth, and we're about to get into the other stuff, but it's just graphically, I think probably and this is not a negative, it's more just probably not my style. I think sometimes some of the overworld stuff can look a little cluttered, but that's just a personal thing.
Okay.
Yeah, like they threw so much detail in there that sometimes it's like, but that's all. Like, it's a small thing, it's such a small thing because it still looks good.
Yeah, so like, it feels unfair to say this, but so like Donkey Kong Country 1, like that was all kind of rubbish, that stuff. Donkey Kong Country 2 to me was great, but I like what they do in Donkey Kong Country 3.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's kind of like more interactive. Yeah. Like that's, not to get ahead of ourselves, or me get ahead of ourselves, but that part of it is significantly better than Diddy's Conquest. But it wasn't a negative to me, the overworld stuff. Like, I've still felt like brought it to life. It did everything it needed to do. It was kind of like it was foreshadowing some of the stuff. Like you're starting in the early worlds and you can see some of the crazy stuff up ahead. And yeah, it's like just graphically, like for what they had, I can't even think of an example of a game that does more with so little.
It's pretty crazy, and it's almost with the exception of like I'd probably put number 2 and 3 on the same level for me, but there's nothing else. They are the top graphically on Super Nintendo. I love the art style of Yoshi's Island, but it's still not on this level. I think it's just like this is just phenomenal graphically.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a huge fan of Yoshi's Island. I love the way Yoshi's Island looks. Like love it. And it was very influenced by Donkey Kong Country. Like there's the whole backstory around those games, and sort of Donkey Kong Country gave a bit of a foot up the ass to Nintendo and what they could do with the console. It's just different, But I think Diddy's Conquest is probably the peak in terms of graphics.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, the controls in this game are so much tighter than number 1. It's just almost night and day in terms of hitboxes on the enemies as well.
Oh.
It's just, you feel like you're in control of the characters this time. And like the claptrap's a perfect example. There's not that many in this game compared to the first one, and they're much bigger. But in the first one, you jump on top of claptrap but slightly on their back, and then it would hurt you. And you'd be like, oh, come on, what? The hitbox was just so weird. And there's an example of a hitbox I don't like in this, which I'll get to, because I'm kind of going through the positives first. But it just feels so much better. And part of that's also that both the characters are super mobile, but even the characters feel so different than each other. Like they've put so much time and effort into making Diddy and Dixie feel different, which is cool because they could have made them just play the same with one extra move, but they didn't. They actually feel different.
Yeah, and it's so much so that you could easily play this whole game with Diddy Kong and this whole game with Dixie Kong, and you're approaching some of the enemies and the challenges differently. And it's almost like an extra game because of that. Just like comparing it to Donkey Kong Country, and you kind of have to compare the games. Yeah. Having played it now fresh, both of these games, and we haven't even covered how I played this game because I guess infamously I did rewind and save states and all that crap to play through Donkey Kong Country, right? But part of it was like, I started playing the game and I was just kind of like, man, this is really frustrating. Like, it was getting annoying. I'm doing a jump and it's like, oh, this is BS. It's not as bad as what I'm about to say, but it does remind me a little bit of, have you ever played Street Fighter 1?
Yeah.
And then played Street Fighter 2?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, they're the same elements of the games, but Street Fighter 2 feels right, tight, like good controls. It feels like you die fairly, you live fairly, all that kind of stuff. Whereas Donkey Kong Country, I'm like fighting the controls half the time.
See, I think a better comparison is Mortal Kombat 1 to 2.
Yeah, sure. But like the overall point around...
Like less of a jump where Mortal Kombat 1's still playable and it's still fun, but it's just not tight. It's just not... Like number 2, you're just like, okay, this feels right now,
Yeah, and look, like I'm not trying to say it's as janky as Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 2, but it's just like, to me, it's more just about, are the controls tight or not? It's a binary thing almost, and there are worse degrees of it. But if your controls aren't tight, like I've realized now, I just don't like playing those games. Like it's so frustrating to me. Like when I feel like I've died. Because I'm not even that great at games in the first place. I've died because it's like half the controls are just bad. And the hitboxes are wrong and all this other kind of stuff. And the hurt box is wrong. And I cannot praise this game enough. Like literally for me, there was only one single point in the whole game when I played it where I was like, I died on one point, which was, I can't remember. It was deep in the game, and it was like one where it's all the vines with spikes and things like that, and there's like the wooden planks that are like the platforms you have to jump on. And there's one particular part of the game where you have to do this like roll and then jump, and to me, my eye, it's like I look like I land on the wood, and I died as if I'd hit the spikes. I was like, huh, okay, yeah, weird. I played it again, and I did the exact same thing, and I'm like, nah, that looks wrong to me.
Mm.
Like, I get that it's like, it's not it's a hurt box there, but it doesn't look right to me. But that was like the one thing in the whole game for me personally where I just felt weird. Versus Donkey Kong Country was constant.
I've definitely got some issues with the controls, but
Oh, really?
specific issues, I should say.
Yeah, what?
I guess let's mention it now. So all the controls around climbing the chains and the ropes. Specifically, specifically the and this rears its head at the end of the game when you got that that level where it's all about climbing vertically up the whole tower. I had no issues. I didn't really die much in the game at all up until there's one other level which I'll mention soon, but up until there where it just you would jump towards the chain and I would be expecting to press up, but you got to press across, and it's just there's so many times where I died where I'm like, I pressed this. What? It just feels like to me, and I could be wrong, but I think they cleaned that part up in number 3 quite a bit for, especially like towards the end of that level. You've got quite a bit of, towards the end of that game, you've got quite a bit of like stuff where you're on ropes and stuff, but. That's that, and like when you're in the middle of the game in the swamp with the reeds, I found that it was also a problem then because I was trying to play on the Joy-Cons and I swapped to the Pro Controller when I got out of the hospital, and that's the only time that I didn't like the controls. So that is a nitpick, but we're at the point where the only I feel like I have to nitpick this game because so much of it is done so well. So the controls are amazing. Yeah. But I did have issues with how that stuff works. I felt that could have been a bit better. But
I mean, even for me on those, I did find myself naturally switching from the analog stick to like the digital D-pad, like the button D-pad.
Yeah, I was using the D-pad.
And I think part of it was because it was like, I knew it was going to be a certain direction if I did it like that. So I do kind of get what you're saying. Like it is a bit, it's like finicky is how I would look at it. I found it was consistent in what it was trying to do. It just was like, you had to get your head around what it was trying to do. And then I was pretty much consistent all the way through once I got that.
The other thing, and this was more annoying when I was playing Joy-Cons, was I wish the swap, when you swap between characters, I wish that wasn't select. Now I don't know, I can't remember if I know the triggers were used for like the spider ability and stuff, but
was it? I never used the triggers. I don't like the L and R buttons.
Yeah. So for some reason swapping just felt like an unnatural button to press, and I can't remember what it was in number 1, if it was the same or not. But
well, I don't think I ever swapped in number 1, to be honest.
I swapped all the time because you've got characters that Donkey Kong could kill and Donkey Kong. But you also save scum, so you probably didn't need to.
Save scum. No, but I just think this game is built much more around the idea that Dixie Kong and Diddy Kong are different.
I swapped all the time in this game because
fair enough. Yeah, I just didn't have that experience. And it wasn't like the save state thing. It was just like didn't feel like I needed to.
Yeah, and that's a tiny thing, but and I guess we've got to get to it. We're going to get to the music.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, this, and I have a feeling. Look, number 1 and number 2, I think, are probably stronger than number 3 in this regard. But both these games, like, what can you say? Number 2's music is just, oh my god! Like, it has. All right, so I actually think number 1 has more standouts, but number 2 has Sticker Brush Symphony, which is probably my favorite video game song. It is just amazing. Sticker Brush Symphony, you've got Forest Interlude, is just so good. There's the song Mighty Melancholy when you're in like the mine shaft levels, but which actually reminds me a bit of the Final Fantasy VII Turk theme a bit with how it kind of uses bass and stuff. But what I really love about the music is actually how they do really atmospheric sounds.
Yeah.
So they've got wind at the start when you're in the ship level when you're swimming. It's got like underwater sounds that sound like they're muffled. You got crickets in the swamp. The production is insane. It is absolutely
Well, it's even
insane.
I know we're talking about music, but like sound in general and the sound effects, like even the animals or the creatures that are like chomping, the way it sounds, it's like a really like tactile, like I don't know, it's just like not like anything you'd heard in games before. Like it's just like so on point, the sound. Like for me, at least personally, I don't think it was one single part of the game where I didn't feel like the music fit and added to the game.
No, as I said, like there's certain tracks that like I think Donkey Kong Country 1 just had more of the tracks that I like, but
Yeah.
this, like, just even the themes, the overall theme is awesome. Like the theme when you're first on the ship,
Yeah.
like, what can you say? Like, everyone knows that this game soundtrack is just legendary. It's kind of hard to. I don't think there's anything negative at all you could say.
No,
about the sound
not
of this
definitely
game.
not with the sound. Yeah, not at all.
Man, yeah, it's
and just the game itself. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I would, for me, I guess, and in this part of the game, the difficulty curve is so much better in this game than number one. It's much harder than number one, but the enemy placement is fairer. So the problem with Donkey Kong Country 1 is it would throw so many things at you that you just weren't expecting, or you couldn't expect. It had way more.
It's cheap.
Yeah, it had way more leaps of faith. Now they will throw control enemies at you every now and then, and it's like, I think there's a level where I think it's one of the Bramble levels where you go through the whole thing, and right at the end they throw a claptrap at you. That's fine every now and then, but the difficulty curve is great. It starts off really easy, and it goes up, but it is much harder than number one. The one thing I'll say is that I think the end run is a little unbalanced. I think it's honestly a bit rough. Those last few levels, like since I was a kid, I was able to get through it much easier. But I remember going through it the first time as a kid. Like, some of those levels are rough, and they don't give you, like, I think one of the levels, either I missed the midpoint or there wasn't a midpoint, but it's like, man, some of this stuff, I feel like that kind of comes out of nowhere, that run of levels. But I will say that the level that I was dreading, and I'm like, is it one of those secret Lost Word levels or is it normal level? But it was the last level, which was the race against the parrot in the brambles, Screech's Scramble. Or whatever
that was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember just that level's the bane of my existence as a kid, and I loved it this time. I'm like, I love this level now because it just felt cool to kind of like destroy it, come back and kill it. The thing is, I didn't go and get all DK stuff in that level. I ended up I think I ended up about 60% or something. But
like overall, yeah, that's exactly what I ended up on as well.
Wow, there you go. So, and I went out of my way to get stuff, but I didn't replay levels if I missed them. And yeah, so I do think that last run of levels is a bit rough. I don't know if it's because they just, I don't know, it just felt like that's the only part of the level where I think the game where I think the difficulty was a little unbalanced.
So like, just from a difficulty perspective, like, it sounds weird what I'm going to say, but I kind of felt like this wasn't as difficult as Donkey Kong Country. But to me, it's because I felt like Donkey Kong Country was so cheap and so frustrating at times with like jumps and certain, just the controls and the whole setup of the game. Whereas with this, I felt like you could always do it. Like, it never felt like, oh my God, how the hell are you ever going to beat this? Like... Whereas with Donkey Kong Country, it was just like, oh my God, I'm like, I don't even want to play it.
Well, bosses are way harder in this, though.
Yeah, well, they're bosses.
Yeah.
Versus guys that just go back and forth or whatever. And so like, I get it. I still probably, have to even concede that this game is more difficult, but it's just so much more fair, so much more balanced, the way the game amps up the difficulty. Like, at the start, I was like, okay, maybe this game is not as hard as I remember it being. And then, you get to like the Lost World levels, which I'd only beat and played one of them. And that was like way harder. I was like, and it was cool. It was actually a nice challenge. And then, you know, obviously, like, we haven't really touched on it much, but there's so many secrets baked
Yes,
into the
that was the next
levels.
thing I was going to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Like, it's a sign of, like, because I don't have much time. Like, I have to really try to allocate my time well each week. But I found myself, like, I had to actually stop myself because I started to collect everything. I was just enjoying the game so much. You know, to me, it feels like you're communicating with the developers a bit. Like, you know, versus the first one, which felt so cheap at times. This one is like, it's cheeky. It's like, I can see what they're doing with something. Like, they'll give you a bit of a hint, or you'll get through a section and then you'll go, huh, hey, wait a second, there's a whole nother section there. Or there's like an exit box where you go, oh, wait a second, I could have picked up Squawk or something like that, one of the animal friends. And it's constantly throughout this game where you're like, okay, like, that's giving me a hint there's something there, you know. And there's other ways to figure out where the secrets are, because you can talk to, you know, the Kong cast. Like, they have like lots of tips on, you know, where to go or where the secrets are, and it's just so rich, the amount of secrets in this game. And I had, like I said, I had to stop myself from collecting stuff because I was like, I got to get through this game and beat King K. Rool, or else I won't hear the end of it.
Yeah, this is one of the first games I can think of, with the exception of maybe Mario World, where it made getting the secrets feel worth it. And
Yeah.
and when you're playing the game, you don't even kind of know why. You're like, you're like, the DK coins,
It's fun.
the DK coins, which is such a brilliant idea. You don't even know why you want them, but you try so hard. You're like, I really want that. You don't even know why. You know, at that point,
Yeah.
if you've played the game, you know. But and the bonus levels are super creative. It's crazy, and I think they, you know, this is essentially the model they follow for number 3 as well. I can't remember if they do anything on that. I don't think they do in the Returns games, do they? I don't think they do anything on this specific.
Do any what?
Like, they don't do any DK coin stuff, do they?
In what?
In the Returns games.
Oh no, but they have a lot of collectibles.
Yeah. Okay. So
so they still got all of that stuff. Yeah. But as opposed to this game, the one thing about this game though for me is there's no way to tell if you've gone through all the bonus exits, as far as I could tell. Like, it tells you if you've done the DK coin, but I don't think it tells you if you've done all the exits.
It puts an exclamation mark at the end of the level name.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, I haven't noticed that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I haven't gone back to the levels. I was just trying to collect them as I went through. Okay, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So it's just so cool. And while I definitely didn't do everything, the whole Lost World thing is awesome. You know,
did you go through any of them? Or?
No, I unlocked 4 of them out of 5 or whatever it is. But then I just didn't play any of them because I wanted to make sure I finished the game.
So you could actually say that I've played more of this game.
Technically, yes, you have.
There you go. I'm the better gamer. Yeah, it's proven after all.
So, and the Lost World, I mean, it's very Super Mario World with the Star Road or whatever it's called, but but you have to earn it much more in this.
Yeah.
It feels really like, oh man, like I worked my ass off to get these coins and pay this dude. And I guess
I like how it says you want to fight him, and it's like you can't, like, it doesn't do anything. It's like run away or fight him. You pick either. Just, you know, you're out of there.
But the new animal buddies they added are fantastic. They added charge moves to Engard, Rambi, the spider, Squidder, and such a cool idea. Like,
the spider's so
angling
cool,
the shots up and down and creating the platforms. Whoever came up with that is a genius. Like, they nailed it, and it feels right. That's the important part. It doesn't feel awkward. It feels right.
Nah, it feels natural. You just get it, and you're playing it. It's easy.
Look, so probably the levels I love the most. So I love Bramble Blast. That's just so cool. Anytime that I play, two of my 3 levels, both the Bramble levels.
Bramble Blast is like top 3 for me in this game. And that's a like, you know, if you wanted to put a video game Hall of Fame level, that would be a contender, man. Like, all up, the whole package.
Yeah, I really liked Rambi Rumble as well. I thought that was a really cool stage.
Yeah, I love that one as well.
But and I put as my 3rd one is that Screecher Sprint. I actually like it. I really, really like it now. I used to hate that as a kid.
I liked it.
So, but and I guess for me, this is a bit more graphically, but I love the so the settings, you've got like the bayou or swamp water. I can never say the word. Or like the different, I guess, like settings of each world. The beehive just looks so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bit hard to see stuff, but it's cool. It's fine. You get it. You live with it. The ship but the brambles, like other than the hurt box issue you said, like everything else about that stage with the layered brambles in the background is really cool. So
Yeah. And one thing I love about this game so much, and I'll gush about it forever, is it's so intelligent and it's such like a nod to the audience, which is very rare in games in general, but like this is back in the 90s, man. It's like the fact that they didn't put a minecart level early in the game. It was like halfway through, which, that was very like famous part of the series. They had that in their ads. It's almost like everything in this game, you earn it,
Yeah.
It's like it's there, but you have to earn it. And like getting up to like World 4, it's not like the easiest thing ever. And it's just like, and when they finally do have the minecart levels, because it was a bit over the top in Donkey Kong Country 1, where it felt like way too many and they were just too similar. Like these ones are just awesome, Like, and in a way, they're a lot easier than the Donkey Kong Country ones. Like, I think I only died once or twice on all the minecart levels because everything's kind of flagged to you. Whereas in Donkey Kong Country 1, it's so cheap. Like, you have to keep playing it over and over again to learn the pattern. But they were just so awesome. And it actually handled well as well, which is tricky to do. I just love how they just paced this game. Like, in what they gave you, what they took away. It's just so cool. Yeah. So cool.
The bosses are
I want to get to the bosses.
They're really inventive in this one.
They're so good.
They mix up the formula and make you actually use the environment, which is something that you see a lot now in these days, but back then you didn't see that. I think Contra 3 did it a bit where you have to climb around the walls and stuff. And there's games where you find examples. But
Mega Man does some of that.
But they just kind of just go crazy in this, and they're tough. Like they're especially as a kid, I found some of these tricky. I did hate one of them though.
Which one?
The cudgel one. So that's the big dude.
Is that the sword?
No. So I like the sword.
Oh.
It's the big dude in the swamp that drops down. He just keeps falling, and he's got that giant club that takes up half the screen. And the reason I don't like the boss is because I found that he had a bit of a wonky hitbox, and I just didn't find the boss that exciting. He just kept moving side to side. Whereas the other bosses felt a lot more creative. So that's the only boss I didn't like.
I think he was the most straightforward, like boring one, but I thought it was funny because it's the same guy, isn't it? That you have to talk to get.
No.
Or is it similar to that kind of type of guy? Yeah.
But not the same dude.
I didn't have much of an issue with that one. The one that I didn't like was the sword one, just because I felt like jumping over the sword, I always had a trick. Like, I just couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't work out the spacing of it. So I would always lose one of my characters at the start. It would really piss me off. Like, I tried it a few different ways, and I don't know, just the way I was jumping, obviously, just wasn't right. I need to look at a video or something, but that was the only one I had, like, difficulty with. But yeah, look, like, they're all really, really cool. Like, they're not easy at all. They feel like bosses. It feels like once you get through it. And then, I don't know if you played much of Donkey Kong Country Returns and those games.
I've always played, like, the first world of Returns.
Yeah, they kind of lean into the whole boss thing a bit, And I don't know why, but I always find it funny because generally Nintendo's formula is 3. It's like, you hit them 3 times and then they're dead. And it always feels like in Donkey Kong Country series, it's like 4 times generally.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about that always like annoys me because I always think, oh, it's dead. Oh no, I gotta hit it again.
But this game also does the Dark Souls thing. I love it, where it's like, you think the boss is dead, phase 2.
Yeah, well, I did actually think of Dark Souls. I haven't played Dark Souls, but I didn't want to bring it up, so I'm glad that you did, because it did make me laugh. Because I was thinking, this is like proto Dark Souls.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing in plenty of games. It just reminded me. But and the K. Rool fight is great. I really liked the K. Rool fight in the first game as well.
But I think it's better, the K. Rool one in the first game. That's probably the only thing I'm going to concede is better in the first game.
I like this one because I like the setting more.
You prefer it?
Yeah, I like the one in this
Yeah.
one more because they got
It's fairer.
they got kind of a lot more creative. Like, okay, he goes invisible for one move, and like I think it's pretty cool. But it's honestly all the bosses. And I didn't fight the Lost World version of K. Rool because we didn't go through all those levels. But
Yeah, true. We didn't go through that. Yeah.
but I swear I remember him being much harder. All the bosses, honestly.
You know what? I have to say, I must have a recollection of playing K. Rool, the Lost World version of it.
Yeah.
Because I have this recollection like this being impossible, right? So when I started playing it, I was like, oh my God. I was actually thinking to myself when I first played K. Rool, and I'm like, oh man, am I going to get through this? Because I haven't even mentioned it, but I didn't, do save states, rewind, anything like that. So I played it legit, right? So, you challenged me to do that. That's what I did for this. And then I was getting up to K. Rool and I'm like, oh man, if I can't beat this, I'm going to be embarrassed. This is going to be so annoying. I felt like it was a real possibility because my recollection as a kid, it was like impossible or something, really, really hard. And I think the first time I got up to the last phase, like, not phase, but the last component that you had to kill, which was the purple reversing controls part, and I died, and then I couldn't beat him. And then I was like, well, the thing is, I was playing it on Joy-Cons.
That's rough.
And then later, I played it on like the Super Nintendo controller that they released, and it took 2 goes, and I was able to beat him. So I spent like 20 times trying to beat him on Joy-Cons, which I just couldn't. And then I switched to a proper controller and beat him like after 2 goes. But it was a really, really cool fight.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird, how he kept on, kind of dying and then not. I kind of wish they would change the environment or something like that at one point of those things, just to make it a bit more visually interesting. But it was a really cool fight. I liked it.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that technically would have been tricky for them to do, but
true.
But
or like even like pretend it's finished and load up a new level or something.
Man, I'm looking forward to the fight number 3. I love that one so much. I love all the.
And I probably should flag to everyone. I've only played like the first 2 worlds in Donkey Kong Country 3, and it didn't grip me, and then I just gave it up. So I'm actually super looking forward to playing it after playing this game.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm trying not to have the same hype level, but man, this game is just like as perfect as you can get for what it's trying to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's just a couple of things. There's probably the one last thing that I negative towards the game for me is, and this is a personal preference. The kind of middle part of the game, the environments don't grip me. The thing is that it's really consistent. We talked about that as well, as that like it's really cool what they do with the environments. But when you start going through the fire area and then the swamp area and then the forest, like that middle part of the game kind of drags a little bit visually for me, even though it looks great, if that makes sense. It's like it looks fantastic, but I'm like, oh, the swamp levels. I don't know why. I just don't get excited about playing them as opposed to when I get to like the theme park level and things like that. So
look, and there's a personal preference kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
look, like I would rarely say this, but I actually, because this game holds up. This game holds up, man.
Oh,
and
definitely.
I think like I'll probably replay this game again, and I don't know. I could actually see myself trying to get to 102%, which is like the max out percent. It's just such a fun game, man. It's so good. It's just very fair in what it's trying to do, and just very fun and very creative.
You should try to max out when you play number 3, because that'll be a new experience, and that has lots of secrets.
Actually, yeah. I'm going to set up my office, so yeah, I'll try to play that on the Trinitron and see how I go. I just heard it's a bit longer, so I don't know if I have the time to try to do that.
I can't remember if it's much longer.
Okay,
maybe
because this one's about 40% longer from a time perspective, generally for people.
Yeah.
So then the first game, I should say. But yeah, no, it's such an awesome game, amazing. And was there anything else you wanted to cover with DKC 2?
No, I just think we're gonna give our thoughts on where this fits in the in the realm of everything, aren't we?
Well, okay, so, and I'll for those following along on YouTube, but obviously we'll talk about it still. So, because we had this conversation just around like, what are we doing with this kind of stuff? Because we're pretty ad hoc. Like even last week with Mike, I'm like, we don't really have a rating scale or anything. So it's like, what do you give it? So I think before we get ahead of 200 episodes in, maybe it's a good idea to come up with a concept. So what we're doing is we're really, instead of just giving a game a number, which I think there's plenty of places to do that, we're looking at sort of genres, and it's our opinion of genres, not like what the consensus is, and rating games on the scale of bad to average and then good, and just like where it fits in that continuum. And I hope with time, we keep adding games, and maybe even we debate about where the existing games sit on that spectrum. So just given that we're sort of doing this, I thought maybe we could go back and quickly get through the games we'd already covered and where they would sit, and then get into DKC2. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. I do have a question. So we have to agree on where it sits?
Well, so I had the initial design of this. I had like my view, your view, and then the consensus view. But then I thought, it's just visually a bit messy. So, look, I think like we're pretty good at negotiating this stuff. I think it's more about like how passionate do you feel about it? Have you played it? All that kind of stuff.
And the only time we need to agree is when it's a circumstance where we're both playing through, as opposed to if we're reviewing or something, a game, like I'm just doing it, then I'll just rate it,
Yeah, of course. And then I won't have a view on it. So if we had this for Mike, we'd put whatever he rated it, and that would be the rating.
Yeah.
So until we play Hades, which I'm sure we will one day. All right, well, let's do Bonk. So, and also what we're saying here is that average is kind of like, it's not a bad game. It's not even necessarily a good game. It's kind of neither. It's just perfectly average.
It's Aladdin on Super Nintendo. That's what we've got as our average.
Which is our best kind of guess. And then for our bad game, do you want to cover this one?
We've got Bible Adventures on the NES.
Which is very much made famous by James Rolfe from Angry Video Game Nerd. And then finally, for the good game. So the idea of good game, it's like a 10 out of 10, perfect, and also we tried to pick a game that is not a debatable one. Because I initially was saying like we should put Yoshi's Island, but there are people who don't like Yoshi's Island. I don't understand that, but Super Mario Brothers 3 is what we've selected as the perfect 2D platformer. So that's the benchmark.
I think that makes sense. And I have to kind of, I also am going to kind of, like I
defer a little bit.
Yeah, because like Mario 3 is like, I wouldn't put that as the echelon, but a lot of people consider it as the kind of the top thing. So it makes sense to me why we've got that there.
Yeah, and for me, definitely is like a perfect game. Like, and I've also been a bit cute because I've got a little bit of space to the right and the left. So there could be games that we consider better than Super Mario 3, worse than Bible Adventures on the bad side. And I think in general, it's like the average line. It's our assessment is it's a bad game or a good game, fundamentally.
Yeah.
And then, ranges. So let's have a crack at Bonks. I mean, like, I feel like it's a little bit unfair because we didn't give it a huge fair shake of the sauce bottle, as Kevin Rudd said.
Played through 70%, 60 to 70% of the game. I think it's enough to rate. A
good game, yeah? Like, we're already in that realm, yeah?
Yeah, I'd probably... maybe, like... I don't know, I'd kind of put it above the E myself, but... Like, at the E in average.
Oh, okay, so on the visual...
Yeah, sorry. The word average is kind of in the middle, so right of the middle.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm sitting for Bonk. I'm happy.
Yeah, so like if I'm looking at it, it's like about 1/3 from like where Aladdin is all the way to
watch
Super
the clip
Mario
on YouTube. It'll be much easier to follow.
I think it does make sense. That's kind of my gut feel. I was almost going a little bit to the left of that, to be perfectly frank.
No, I think
like I liked it. It was fun, but it's just
yeah. I think that's a good spot for it because it is actually there's some really really good stuff in Bonk.
That's true, and that game was really early, man. That's like way before these games.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. It came out around the same time as Super Mario 3. All right, yeah, cool. Let's keep it there. All right, Donkey Kong Country 1. Now, I mean, like, because I actually love this kind of format because it forces us to say, is Donkey Kong Country 1 better than Aladdin, better than Bonk, worse than Bonk? You know what I mean? It kind of like forces our hand in terms of the scoring.
Yeah, I'd go more right.
So better than Bonk?
Oh, way better. Yep. I love Donkey Kong Country 1.
Oh, way better. Yeah. Okay.
I'd go a bit more right, just a little bit more right. I reckon about there.
Yeah, I can get on board with
Yeah,
that.
because
So what we've said is it's kind of about 2/3 of the way from like Aladdin to Super Mario Brothers
it's like
3.
a 7 on the scale of 10.
Yeah. If Mario was a 10, then yeah, it'd probably be around a
This
7.
is why numbers
something
end
like
up
that.
being useful.
No, but the one thing that numbers doesn't give you is like comparison between the same games.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So like we're early days here. We'll have a stack of games on here eventually. Now, Donkey Kong Country 2.
I mean,
So this is fun. This is fun because we've got Super Mario 3 is the 10. Now the debate now rests around like how good is it?
so,
Is it better than Super Mario 3?
I'd
Is
say
it worse?
just
Is
left of Aladdin.
it...
Let's. So look, I definitely like this game more than Mario 3, but so it almost kind of would make sense to me to sit it on Mario 3 or just left of Mario 3.
Yeah.
It's like this. We've chosen to start this off. We've chosen one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time. So it's not like we're like blowing our load early or anything. Like, oh, we've suddenly got a game with that. It's one of the greatest 2D platforms of all time. So
like I'd actually played Super Mario 3 recently, like the whole game, and beat it. And I was like, wow, this game is so good. And playing Donkey Kong Country 2 again, I had the exact same feeling, to be honest. Like, it is such, like, it so lived up to the hype in my mind around it. I had a joy playing it. Like, I loved playing it.
yeah.
This is a tough one, dude, because I gotta give the context to everything. It's like, the Super Nintendo had killer 2D platformers on it. Like, just off the top of my head, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, and DKC 2. Man, you could just go, there's the 3, and put it in any order. Like, and I'm not thinking you're crazy. Any order, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Personally, like, yeah, go on, sorry.
I'm kind of the opinion that, like, if I was rating this for myself, it would be left of good, just left. And then,
by the way, when we say good, should I change that to perfect?
Okay,
because good seems like so silly to say Super Mario 3 good.
But
wait, I'll change that later to perfect.
But
and bad, should I change to terrible?
Just change it to Bible Adventures. So, but the reason being is because I know that like when we're rating these things, that if I wanted to place Yoshi's Island on here, that'd be the one that I'd place above.
But then that's kind of, that's playing in my head as well. It's like, do I legitimately think this game is better than Yoshi's Island? For me personally, no. But it's a good conversation. It's like right in there. I think I might rate this better than Super Mario World. I need to go back and play Super Mario World.
Yeah.
But just gut feel.
I probably think this is just slightly better, and I love Mario World.
Yes, dude, same. Like, that game, went through all of it. What was it? 96 exits, all that kind of stuff. Love that game to death. But this game is just like, there's something about the game, just everything about it to me is just on point. You know, like the music, the way it plays with what your expectations are, the controls, everything. Whoa. All right.
So I think just slightly left.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm going to put it like, we can just go pixels here.
Yeah, just go like 3 pixels.
3 pixels. I've literally put a 3 pixels to Super Mario Bros. 3. Where it's like ever so slightly.
One
lesser.
1 pixel for the wonky rope climbing, 1 pixel for the clubber boss, and 1 pixel for the Windy Well level.
Windy Well.
That's that level where you
didn't like that level?
Man, I died so much on that level. Screw that level.
You are a human after all. Okay, I like this format. So what we'll do is, as the games come up that we review, it's our opinion. We don't care what you think.
The thing is, we're never going to play any terrible games. So,
well, yeah, that's
unless
true.
there is a a recommendation feature that we're planning. That who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
I think because I love logarithmic scales, I think I need to make it almost more like logarithmic. Because you're right. Like, that's why I had less space in bad, but I probably need even less space because I'm already thinking this space up here is going to get cluttered, like of the perfect games. So, yeah, I like this format. We'll do it whenever we're covering other games. But I think given that we're doing this whole DKC series, we're going to get a lot more 2D platformers on here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think what other games that we're coming up to review. Well, we've got like the whole 2011 stuff to think about.
Yeah.
Game of some other year. So that's going to have heaps of different ones. So, yeah. All right. Well, our official verdict is Donkey Kong Country 2 slightly, ever so slight, 3 pixels less than perfection of Super Mario Brothers 3, but I would put this in the you have to play this game category if you're a gamer.
No question. It's
and it's not that long.
I'd be really interested to see what someone who's never played this game played it today, how they felt, and I think it holds up, but you never know.
I think it holds up. It definitely holds up. Nah. You know why? Because so Donkey Kong Country, I feel like you're being too lenient. I actually think this should be further to the left.
I love Donkey Kong Country. I said it.
I reckon we push this to the left.
I said it last when we reviewed it. That I reckon it's one of the best pure platforms on the system. Because it as in just literally just like running around doing stuff. I
reckon we should push it to the left.
Nah, music, presentation, like it's so much.
Okay, I'll only keep it there just because I'll give it a few things. It's for what it did as the first type of game. It blew away people, so I'll keep it there. Yeah, I think that's fair. But just on a pure game, if I was like fresh, it'd probably be way to the left. To be honest,
I still love that game.
It might even be below Bonk, like if it was just fresh. So, yeah, no, but
insane. You're insane.
Donkey Kong Country 2 is genuinely in a very rare class of games for me that I feel like you have to. It's like the classics from a literary perspective. Like you just have to go back and play it. Like it's just a must play game. It's so good. All right, cool. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on around Donkey Kong Country 2 before we wrap up?
No, give it a shot. It's on Nintendo Switch SNES app. Play it.
Yeah, it's very accessible these days. So have a crack. It's really good fun. Awesome. Well, that wraps us up for this week's episode. If you'd like to reach out to us, hit us up on Twitter at BigWigPod, or hit us up through the YouTube comments. We always reply to each and every one of them. If you do want us to grow, make sure you give us a good review or just recommend us to your mates. That will always help the podcast grow with time. With that, bye-bye.
See ya.